It's another episode of the Best Damn League show. I would specify it. It's one where we're going to cover Fnatic failing in the play. Oh, wait, that doesn't actually narrow it down at all. My bad. Right. Anyway, this is the newest episode of the Best Damn League show with all the same Fnatic talking points recycled, but now it's no longer hope optimism. It's all just depression, I know, GMing, epistemology. Are they even allowed to win? And for this episode, that's right. He's done it again. It's another ERL coach that's Portuguese. Apparently, this must be the Peter Dun effect. Apparently, it just turns out the more time I spend with Peter Dun, the more time I start talking to people who speak Portuguese in esports. That's a joke about the fact that all the Brazilians hate me and say yes. But actually, that's not even totally true. Like, I'll actually tell everyone the real secret to Portugal and Brazil is if you're doing a thing where it's like you're talking about their favourite team, or it's like Portugal versus the world or Brazil versus the world, then yeah, they go fucking mental online. Like, you have to think about like football fans who are in the arena and they're going nuts with flares and stuff. But if you ever actually get them in a call like this, or if you meet them in a bar or something, they're actually super chill. It actually goes the other way super hard, believe it or not, and they're actually quite warm and open. So we'll see how this episode goes. So DeadShadow is the coach of Lua Gaming, which is a Superliga team. It's one of the Spanish league teams. So welcome to the show. Nice to have you.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure. And I'm looking forward to discuss Fnatic with you guys.
Right. Yeah. What we will do is we always have, much like I always joke, like in Fight Club, the first person has to fight. So what we do is we start with the guest here, DeadShadow. So what is your good point? What's good at the moment in LLEC?
Perfect. So for me, the good point I brought is about, first, a bit of a hype for the next Koi versus KC match. I think that one is going to be, once again, particularly interesting. I think these guys have started now to actually build somehow a rivalry. I'm actually going to point it almost like a Fnatic G2 level. I don't think they're up there now, but I do believe that we're starting to see something in LEC that people maybe have not really stopped for a minute and say, oh, this is like really good for the league, like this is really, really good. These are two teams with, they just had like two beautiful homestands. They have a huge fan base. They have this dichotomy where they represent France and Spain. So this is all the LT and maybe non-LT as well, France-Spain rivalry, right? But this is really good. And I think it's particularly going to be a very interesting BO5, especially due to the fact that the last match, maybe to the surprise of many, it fell into the hands of Koi. I'm not sure how you guys felt about it, but I wouldn't give it to Koi at the time. I actually would maybe think like a 3-2, a 3-1 to KC, but a 3-2 for Koi, and the way it was pretty surprising. I think especially for Super. I think Super had something to prove to some extent. I think there's a lots of talks behind Caliste, or the little Prodigy King, right, the little prince, but I think Super, to surprise of many, on that series, he really had a point to prove. And I think this just glorifies it even more, like these guys have been tackling each other to the RLs over and over again, all the way back to 2022 EMEA finals. Their series are usually very, very tight. I think so far, if I'm not wrong, this is the first BO5 we've seen about them this year, besides like BO1s and BO3s. So those for sure are good, but BO5 is a BO5. It's totally different, right? Especially when it's all about figures as well. So I'm particularly excited, but I did want to talk about this as well a bit about in a broader way, which is, and that's why I think my points are all indirectly connected, which is, I'm not going to call it the fall of some and the rise of others, but I do believe that with the fact that teams like Fnatic have year after year not underperforming, but maybe not living towards the expectations, I think it's clear that fans are getting frustrated, right? And those fans are for sure. Some of them are staying in Fnatic. I'm not going to remove it to them. I'm even myself. I adore Fnatic. I think as every European, we all love Fnatic. They're the OGs of Europe, right? So we all want Fnatic to succeed. But I think it's very natural that year after year, teams like KC, like Koi, a team like Koi that has been here for quite a few times. Mad Lions at the time won the split, right? KC, after 1 year of being in LEC, already won it, went to international event, made it to finals. And then if we have a team like Fnatic that has been, I think the last split they won was, 2018, I believe. So it's been many, many times over and over again that Fnatic fans have been expecting more and more. I don't want to dive deep into that though, but I think all of this frustration and the rise or somehow the glorification of teams like KC, of Koi, with huge prospects, with huge players that already have this storytelling, right? These teams that they have this representation. Fans feel identified with them to some extent, right? The Caliste story, the Super story, the Spanish, the French community, even on the old KC roster, Seiken, Cabo. So these type of players makes the fans love them even more, right? So I really think that this next series, I really hope it goes to 5 games once again. I think as a coach and as a viewer as well, I think this year of LEC, I think if he didn't have Koi and KC performing, I think LEC would be a lot more of a crumble situation to some extent. Like I think LEC maybe wouldn't be skyrocketing as much as it was. I even went back and checked how it was on the esports stats, like the viewership. And if I'm not wrong, this split, spring splits, it was Koi versus KC, the highest viewers match, and so not even G2. And on spring on winter, it was indeed G2 versus KC. So
right.
yeah, I'm not sure if this is like a G2 Fnatic level in the future, but I'm just very, very happy that we have these teams in LEC. I think they're very, very good for the ecosystem. I think if they are performing, it's also very good. And for me, this just kind of refers to general sports, where you have these teams that represent your country. And in my perspective, this is even like the biggest advantage kind of that Europe has to offer compared to Asia, LTA, LPL, where yeah, they're all the same continent. Maybe there's a bit of representation somehow in some teams, but in Europe you actually feel like, okay, these guys are Spanish, these guys are French, and it's just like a healthy rivalry, right? And I think that benefits a lot for the ecosystem. And yeah, I just feel like it's amazing to watch, and I'm really, really looking forward for this next BO5.
Makes sense. Just from my impression is that KC fans kind of like hard hate Super and like soft hate JoJo, right? From the LPP perspective, in your opinion, obviously just for one perspective, who do the Koi fans hate on KC, and who do they hard hate and who do they soft hate from KC?
I think that's it's a tricky question because they're always going to target whoever maybe shot some fires,
Oh, I mean, trash talk,
it's,
right? I see what you mean.
Yes,
Right.
so it's a bit hard to say, but I would say that potentially they have Caliste as like the little prince, right? So I think every other ADC that we'll face, you can probably put like Gumayushi in front of Caliste. They're gonna say that it's Caliste, is the best in the world. Don't talk bad about my kid, So I would say that potentially they are still just hating towards Super and Alva. I think Super and Alva this year they also shot some fires in and there. So I think they're just like the ones that people will always target the most compared to the other center of the pieces.
Makes a lot of sense. I mean, the first series was a banger for sure. I mean, I'll be frank. Like, I was really surprised by how well Super played in that series. For me, the rematch is really interesting because I get to see if that was, sometimes you just wake up in the morning and you just have like one of those incredible days and literally everything is going right and you feel like you're king of the world. So I'm not gonna sit here and say that it's not gonna happen again, but I need once isn't enough for me. I need to see a second time because best of ones, best of threes, they don't matter as much. But best of threes kind of still matter a little bit. Like it's not like you could completely brush off his regular season performances. And but I do think he was for sure the better AD carry last series. I think he was the big difference. Super in the Koi versus KC upper bracket. I think it's a really interesting series. It's really interesting rematch. I think also that the viewership for this is going to be incredible, right? Like to me, sure, there's a final, but I mean, frankly, who's hyped about spring split finals? It's like the big match, like is the match to decide whether you go internationally because of how the new LEC format is, in my opinion. And they have not only a rematch in the first series that ended 3-2, but they have a rematch between two fan bases, which, as far as I can tell, really hate each other. Whether like Koi fans hate any particular KC player, it's definitely clear that they hate the KC fans, and I'm sure the feeling is mutual. So I think that's going to be a banger. I think it is the best series, like with respect to Fnatic, the best series we could have had for hype. And yeah, I mean, obviously, just from the Koi perspective, obviously, Koi owned by Overactive Media, who are a Canadian-based organization. The MSI, I believe, is in Vancouver this year, so it's a Canadian MSI. So obviously, it's going to be pretty big for them. If Koi were able to go. I still, despite what happened in the upper bracket, I still lean towards KC. I think this is a G2. This is a G2 KC situation from last split where KC's prep for G2 wasn't the best. Like they tried last split in the upper bracket. KC kind of over experimented into G2. They tried a bit of their Neela, fancy bot lane picks, which G2 kind of had to have. It was just like, yeah, you're not playing that in lane against me. You're going to go like 4K down. And I think that maybe they over experimented a bit. I don't think in draft, but I think in terms of early jungle pathing in this series. And I think that they're not going to do the same thing again. However, whereas in upper bracket final, I was like 70-30 KC. Now I'm like 55-45. But we'll see. Like obviously, Koi have had 2 weeks of prep, so obviously I'm sure that they'll have something prepped. I'm really excited to see what they have mid lane, new in the champion pool, because G2 really, really targeted JoJo, and the KC coaching staff and analysts are really, really good, so they will have seen what G2 did. And Koi also are not stupid. They will also see what G2 did. And I don't know, are we going to see a JoJo Aurelion Sol? Are we going to see like a JoJo Lulu? Are we going to see a JoJo, I can't even think what else we may see. But I'm really, really excited to see what they've got cooking, because they will definitely have something cooking. And this is the big benefit of Fearless Best of 5, I think. It forces you to have something spicy. So let's see what the spice is. So fully agree with you. Really, really hyped. Still going to edge it to KC. But, it's still going to be soft-supported Koi because of, Merwin and JoJo. But let's see.
I like the angle. Like, obviously, if people know the history of the LEC, I actually think the thing it has struggled with the most is establishing real rivalries. Like, essentially, it was just G2 Fnatic, and that's just because they were number 1, number 2 most of the time. Like, I'm pretty sure, actually, most people are bored of that rivalry because it's just G2 wins all the time, isn't it? Like, the joke is, we even forget, like, they did win one series last year, and they did a couple of years ago, but the problem is they never win the one that matters, so no one really remembers that they win anyway. It always feels like that's just like, fucking 3/4 of the way through the movie, and at the end, the good guy still wins anyway. It doesn't matter that the boss beats you one time in the fight. So I do think there is a problem that people are bored of like the original rivalry, and those are still 2 top teams, but also they've never really bought into any other rivalry. Like, if you think about it, the obvious other rivalry that should have existed, if you go back in the last 5 or 6 years, should have been Mad Lions against Rogue. Those are the other 2 teams that were constantly there. But if you notice, that was never a good rivalry from either side, and both teams, quite frankly, had a history of being like chokers. So no, I don't think anyone really ever cared. And at the time, Mad Lions didn't have this big Spanish fan base they do now. Rogue, the joke is, never had any fans, no matter how good they were. When they won the bloody league, I think they only got cheered for because Reckless and fucking Larson are 2 Swedish people that were on the broadcast. I think if that had just been Rogue in a random arena, I don't even know if they'd gotten any cheers. I don't think anyone was a fan of fucking Rogue back then. Just bizarrely, they never cultivated that aspect of the org. So first of all, these 2 teams, I actually think first of all, it's a good matchup. Like, they have totally different styles, strengths, all that jazz, which you want on a broadcast. Then, as you guys have alluded to, it also does directly play into the French fan base versus the Spanish fan base, which is always going to be like a classic line to go down at the moment with all these people. So you're actually hitting it on multiple different levels here. And then I also even think, if you look at some of the players they actually have like a really interesting blend of players to actually like cross match, etc. Because the joke is, like, on paper, I shouldn't be hyped when I see Super versus Caliste, but Super's going to talk mad shit, so that actually makes it automatically really interesting. Similarly, if I go the other way, Vladdy should be way better than Jojo, but Jojo's going to put some stupid banter out there. By the way, I will actually say, here's how you know when Jojo actually plays decently, that actually he's now starting to get his persona down, because that's why I'm not surprised, DeadShadow, that people aren't really that angry at Jojo. You can tell when he does it that it's like the old double lift thing. They're not really meaning like, I hate you. It's more just like, I'm going to say my opponent's crap and I'm going to beat him, basically. That's like the vibe of every comment Jojo makes. So I feel like people actually do get that now. They don't actually overreact to that as much as they would the other shit that people say, actually, fully enough. So I actually think that's a pretty good angle, because when I was thinking through all the other matchups, yeah, there really hasn't been one. Like, the joke is, this is how you know we're desperate for real rivalries, because the broadcast to this day always tried to give you a bad Thorin impression of giving an esports a story angle by every time SK plays Fnatic. They go, remember, this was El Clasico. It's like, that topic is so old. You may as well be talking about Messi versus Ronaldo and La Liga, mate. It's so out of date. That's never coming back. Like, SK hasn't been a top team for ages, mate. We're talking like about 10 years or something ridiculous. So that rivalry, you can't build off that. You can't do anything with that, unfortunately. And it has no, again, big fan bases. So, no, I think actually the idea that this could be like the new rivalry is a banger. If we're going to use it to talk about this upcoming series, I also think it's really interesting, as Peter phrased it. So let's talk about this a little bit, because I would say this. Going into the first matchup, I actually thought there was a world where KC would just smash them. I thought they were going to be way better. I'm with Peter, though. Here's what's sad. If you're a KOI fan, I'm about to give you some good news. I actually thought that was like impossibly good from KOI. I even said it on the past show. I even think they could have won. I think it was game 2 or something. One of the games they lost, they looked like they could have won. They looked really good in the whole series. The problem is, I sort of err on the side of Peter, which is, I feel like you just woke up and had your best day, and then Casey had sort of like, they kind of misfired on a couple of games, you know. The difference is, if I had gone to my head and I had to bet who wins this series, I would make Casey at least a slight favourite. I think that is just fair to do. And then also, I'll just throw this out there as well, which is, even though normally it's actually going through the lower bracket that exposes you and is hard, especially in something like Fearless, where you'll get to see all the extra drafts. The problem is, because I actually think KC has better players, I'm actually worried that, like, Dylan Falco just gave, like, some free fucking blueprints on how to beat them, potentially, or where you can fuck with them in the draft, etc. So, like, for example, I'm immediately waiting, Peter, for them to try, if it goes to game 5, I want to see if they're going to drain the JoJo pool as well, and that strategy seems like it's got legs to it, mate. That looks like it could work, quite frankly. And once, because people in sports are like that, once you see someone do something and it works, you copy it. If people don't know, I'll give you a quick example. In the Premier League, the player who scored the more goals and assists was obviously Mohamed Salah. But if you watch the season, he slowed down way towards the end, because basically a couple of teams, including people like PSG, by the way, did a really good job sort of taking him out the game. And so everyone did that after that. And suddenly he didn't just like score for fun all the time. It got really hard work for him to like get his game off, basically. So I do worry, unfortunately, that this one will be more KC favourite. But I tell you what, first of all, if KOI win it, game on for the rest of this rivalry, it'll be amazing. Like, the idea KC wouldn't be in the finals, KOI would be back up there. But the difference is, it would be for real this time. It wouldn't be like the weird circumstances of last winter where, you know, they had that bizarre thing with the benching of Adam and all that shit in BDS and then Fnatic. This would be like a real finals one where you totally earned it. So I actually think either way it's good anyway. I do agree it'll probably still end up just being KC versus G2, but the fact we even have to discuss it shows that, like, there's more there than maybe people thought going in. Because actually I think most people, well, the joke is no one actually thought it was G2 before, but most people thought it was going to be KC and Fnatic, didn't they? So the fact now there's a world where it could actually be G2 KOI, that is a different world than we were in before. So no, I think this is an interesting rivalry. Do you have anything more that this actually, like, who do you think is going to win this matchup, DeadShadow, the KOI versus KC one? Who do you think wins it? Who are you favouring?
I'm with you guys. I'm still somewhat leaning towards KC. I do believe that it showed that KC, on the last matches at least, it looked like what they suffered the most versus KOI, specifically more around objective setup, objective fighting, which is where KOI was really excelling compared to other teams. It looked like, even though they were playing Fnatic, which looked like a very crumbled Fnatic, and I think it was Heretics, right? It looked like they were putting a lot of attention into it. So I think that's probably something already prepared from them. I think that's going to be the key. I think early laning phase for sure going to be a bit decisive, but you go back and you watch the series of KC KOI, those games were very even, you know, like they're getting to mid game and these objective fights are deciding everything. So I think it's going to be very similar once again. I do believe that somehow bot lane, the way they were drafting, it looked like they were drafting really pressured lanes. So maybe that can also have a bit of influence early on. But I do believe that these 5v5s are going to be the key for this match for both sides. So I do believe that if KC is definitely putting a bit of 1-9 to this, I do believe that they have a sort of a leaning edge. But I will say that I think KOI, if they're not coming with blood in their eyes for this match, so then something is wrong, you know, because they've lost so many times these important, like the EMEA finals, right? These BO5s, these BO3s. So I really think they want to prove a point and they really want to cement that, okay, like the KC versus KOI rivalry, it's 50-50, you know, it's not like 64, it's not like 55-45, it's 50-50, we can win and we're the ones going to qualify for the international, which to my perspective, maybe it will feed the rivalry even further and it will send KOI to the international events, which could be positive, and at the same time, maybe it will give KC players a bit of a rest before summers, because I really believe that KC so far, these players are kind of rookie. They're very low experience. I think these guys are probably very tired by now. And I think that if they do qualify for Esports World Cup and MSI, I'm not sure how it is in terms of schedule, but it should be very tight compared to summer. So, yeah, I mean, summer and Worlds is what's going to matter the most. So if they do reach a point where on summer they're very, very tired, it can be a bit heartbroken, you know, for these rookies to get there and feel like, okay, we're getting a bit gapped by ourselves, you know, we're getting a bit gapped by how tired we are. So
sure,
we'll see.
By the way, two things. One, new idiom unlocked there. blood in their eyes or something. Apparently that must be like a Portuguese one. It's good. I like it. But fire in their bellies, maybe what you'd say in English. And then also, too, one angle we forgot, Peter, I can't believe you actually forgot this because you started setting it up, is the actual narrative no one thought was possible because nobody had Koi going to the finals is, bro, after all the mockery of JoJo this year, imagine he actually gets to do like the hero's return to Canada, bro, as like a finalist from LEC. That would be a fucking huge storyline. Like, that would be pretty epic considering everyone like kind of donked on this guy last split and said he didn't belong. That'd be pretty cool.
Yep. It would be, which is why obviously I think that would be a great storyline.
Yeah,
but I'm not gonna.
And I feel like if that happens, by the way, surely if that happens, it actually does open the door for like more NA, maybe like then someone like a Blabber considers again. Maybe I would go and do like a year. I think that's like a real concept. We're doing it like jokingly. That could be real, mate. That could be like considered success, right?
Yeah, I mean, like already, I think that the tier 2 in NA is so cooked that like you shouldn't even go to NA. Like if you're an up and coming player now, you shouldn't
yes.
even be in. You shouldn't even be in NA, right?
Yes.
And it's worth saying that. What's his name? My old player, Yukino Cat is on KC.
Never heard of him. I know everything about League. I've never heard of this fucking player. Okay, fair enough, mate.
Okay,
it's all good.
Basically, really promising, very, very young NA jungler.
Okay.
He basically, decided that I think he had lower table. I think he had like 7th or 8th place offers in NA, whatever, LTA North, but chose to go to KC instead. KC Academy.
Okay.
Instead. So you may already.
Oh, see, he's a challenger player, right? Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. Like, I mean, he's a really, really highly ranked solo queue player. Was on like EG's third team back in the day, but basically, like,
okay. I wasn't aware this player was here, so he's in the LFL now, right?
Yeah, he's playing in EU Masters.
Right. That's cool. Yeah.
So yeah, you already see this beginning to happen with like the really, really top prospects.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, what is there for me in LTA North? Like, let's try to join an LFL team. Let's try to join an LVP team. See how this goes in the future. So it's NA fans will love it if JoJo is in NA, but it's really bad for them, like long term, if JoJo is in NA, because like you're just going to see more and more people choose to follow Yukino, choose to follow JoJo. I mean, JoJo's not even that old, right? Like he must be. So that would be really, really bad for the NA ecosystem. But yeah, like the storyline is too good, and that's why I'm like too scared to build it up because in KC, it will already hurt me if KC win. Right. But if I buy into the JoJo's Canada hype, if I I have to shield my heart a little bit though, and I couldn't take it, if I held too much hope.
Oh no, I know. I already know your fear, Peter. Your fear is that not only does Koi lose, but it's specifically a mid gap, and everyone's like, if they'd had a better mid laner, they'd probably be in the final. Like, no, like then it just reverses the whole narrative that we just set up beautifully. Yeah, true.
Yeah, exactly. But I completely forgot about the esports World Cup as well. Holy moly. I don't even know.
And by the way, as far as I know, it's right after again. I think it's like right after immediately. Yeah.
Holy moly, that off season is going to be rough. It's going to be even if Koi go, it's going to be rough.
Yeah,
I'm sure they're happy to go, but like, or into single round robin summer. Oh, we'll see. Hopefully they've spaced it out because obviously they haven't announced when summer split is starting. But hopefully, it didn't happen after first stand. But hopefully, Riot have planned some sort of scheduling to not just a 2-week break between the finals of one tournament and the start of the next tournament, especially when one is international like we saw at first stand. But
here's the problem, mate. The esports World Cup ends on the 20th of July, mate. So surely you're on immediately after to start the split. Like, there's not much time left, right? You can maybe give a week or two, but that's not much time there if you're going to have Worlds.
It should be tough.
That sounds rough. But yeah, just to go back to the original game, like super hyped. I think for Koi to win, so I think we're all leaning slightly towards KC. For Koi to win, Super needs to just go off again. Okay, right? Like it's that simple, right? Like, I mean, Merwin was worse than Canna, but he wasn't like massively worse. But his job is not to beat Canna, it's to contain Canna and let his 4v4 win. And that's what happened. And, if I had to rank, like, if Canna's like a 1, Merwin was like a 0.9, which is like good. It's good for a European top laner. Okay. It's better than Oscar managed, right? Okay. Let's put it that way.
It's the way he didn't just say if Canna's a 10, then the other one's a 9. He moved the decimal point for some bizarre reason on that analogy there. I've never heard anyone go, he's at 1.0, he's 0.9. Okay. Yeah. It's the same number, but mate.
That would have been the smart way to do it.
Sure. What about this, Peter?
That's
I feel like this is what you call in the business, I'll break the fourth wall, a segue here, Peter. But I also feel like if El Yoyo was to say jungle gap Yike, that also could be an interesting factor. What do you think?
Yep.
Shall we talk about your good point now?
Yeah, let's. Oh wow, that's a really good segue. Yeah, but my good point is Yike. Yeah, like Yike this week. So KC were in lower bracket, but they haven't had to show anything, right? Because they 3-0'd Fnatic and then they 3-1 Heretics, but really they should have 3-0'd Heretics as well.
Yep.
But it's just that like Carlsen had some ridiculous team fighting, but he was so far, he was down in that game and he shouldn't have been able to come back. But you know, credit to him for coming back. But you know, KC haven't shown anything, right? And in draft. And I think one of the big things that I was really, really impressed with is this week, Yike has played two teams which are very, very jungle support centric. He's played Fnatic, who obviously Mickey Razork, and he's played Heretics, which is obviously Stend Shia, right? And he has, not with no support, but with, let's say the enemy support has been roaming on him more than his support has been roaming on the enemy, right? And he has somehow managed to at least equalize or come out on top. And one thing I would say about Yike in the regular season is that he was a little, KC's early games were a little bit passive and he was not like being as proactive as maybe he could be, but you cannot accuse him of lack of proactivity in these two series this week. Like, you know, KC know that the two teams they're against are very jungle heavy teams. He goes and picks his Xinjiao into game 2 into Fnatic, carries the whole game after, you know, carrying the game on Wukong, you know, not from level 1 but from level 6. He had a ridiculous Rift Herald play, I remember, where he just like he knocked up Humanoid into like 3 or 4 man Cyclone, which is like a play that I didn't even see on the map. You know, it was such a ridiculous play. But you know, Yike was to me was the MVP of KC this week. You know, kind of had some good games, but Yike really, really, really stepped up. And you know, when the question is that we always have with Fnatic and Heretics as well is when their jungler gets behind, do they have anything? And to me, it looked like they didn't. And that's why I would say, like, I think that's on those teams for not having a plan B. But I think it's also because of Yike doing such a good job in shutting enemy jungle down, or in some cases snowballing harder than the enemy jungle, right? I think both deserves some credit. Yeah, so Yike to me, MVP of KC last week, and obviously it's going to be a big factor against Elioya this weekend.
What do you think, DeadShadow?
I agree. I actually think that this week Yike definitely performed. I think that's something that is already making us get used to, right? It's the guy that, okay, when we need him, he's there. He's gonna perform. I did expect a bit more from the side of Heretics on the match. Actually, I don't think the games were bad, but I did believe that Shio was a player that, for now, he has been. Until now, has been performing really well. So I did expect maybe a bit more proactivity on the Heretics side. I got actually a bit disappointed with their match. But yeah, it's like Peter said. I actually think that Yike this week was phenomenal. I think that game 2 of KC Fnatic, I remember very clearly. They had like 3 prior lanes. He's just perma-eventing with Xin Zhao. He's stealing many camps. He's perma-getting all the objectives. And if I remember correctly, I think on the Fnatic series, Fnatic didn't even manage to get 1 dragon, I think, across all the games. So it was really, really stomping. I think even Fnatic trying to play how they usually do on the mid game, trying to over around Humanoid, trying to make sure that Humanoid is getting these waves. I think Humanoid across the series, he probably got picked off on side like 4 or 5 times across all the 3 games. And that's a lot due to what Yike was doing. You know, he was perma moving even without Targamas a lot of times, like Peter was saying. And I think his jungle proximity that series was just insane. I think this guy has proved the point now that he's grown. You know, the G2 time did him well. I think now he's cemented himself. I would say myself probably a top 1 jungler, if not a top 2. I just hope he doesn't choke in internationally, like sometimes he does. But I do believe that Yike is now probably like getting more and more comfortable and is going to be the leader that this team of KC does need, right?
Yeah, I'll actually pick up on that last point because I do think that's why, to me, this split's been actually a really confusing one for Yike, because I actually do think when people look at Carmine Corp, he's one of the main people that gets blamed. I know partly it is just people just blame him for all those Vi games, but beyond that, he also did have times where he did look a little bit disconnected from some of the team, etc. Considering I think some of the other ones play very consistently and kind of play the same style every time out. And I do think, actually, like DeadShadow said, the reason why for me it's big that he has actually like a legit performer in playoffs is, to me, he is clearly supposed to be the captain of this team, both from like literal experience, championship experience as well, and his age. People always forget this. I always tell them he's only a year younger than Caps. Like in our brains, we all do that thing because they do it with every rookie. The word rookie people take to mean young and up and coming. So the second he came at LEC, people talked like he was 17. He was already about like 23 or 22 or something ridiculous already. But he'd just been in the RLs a long time. So I do think if you look at this squad, they have people who have big personalities, and they could be the, the leader in the sense of like, follow me into battle. But if you look at people like Vladdy and Caliste, they're never going to be your captain, mate, and take you aside and give some fucking epic speech or say the thing in the game that pulled. They're not like that. They're the guys who are busy trying to shit down the other guy's throat. Like that's their mentality. They're just trying to swag on you. Canna is Korean, so I doubt he's going to be super vocal. And the joke with Targamas is they tell us he speaks now, but let's see the evidence. Like Bigfoot in it. I know you said you saw him one time, but I didn't see it. Maybe that was a guy in a suit just walking around. I didn't see the arse, whatever that means. I could do a reference there, but we'll leave that. Right, so what I would say is, I actually do think this was a mega fucking performance from Yike, because I'll tell you what, if you go back, in past years, he was on the team that was beating Fnatic all the time, but every time I would finish those series, I'd be like, mate, Razork's so much better than Yike. Like, imagine if Razork was on G2. Like, give Razork a better team. That's what everyone used to say back then. We all used to look. It's why I say the actual big narrative I think has changed in Fnatic isn't even the Humanoid and the upset one. It's actually the Razork one. Razork went from the player where it looked like, he's the most elo-held player in the game. He'd be winning all the championships. So we gave him, like, loads of mega players. And now he's the problem in the fucking games. Like, that is crazy. But I'll tell you what, that doesn't just happen out of nowhere. Because for anyone who now tells me Razork's bad, go tell fucking Isma that. Like, he didn't notice that. That looked like he was on demon time in that series. Like, every time Razork's in a non-pressure game, he does look amazing. So I think this is a big statement series for Yike, actually, to bully someone like that. Because the thing with Razork, I always say, is this. He might throw, but it's like I used to say about Nisqy. You have to be able to catch it. If you can't catch it, it won't be a throw, mate. It'll just like, lol, I can do whatever I want and still win. A bit like in that GX game where he did that ridiculous flash, but they just fucking killed everyone anyway. It's like, you probably should die if you do it as Koreans, but this is GX, mate. So I think, actually, like, if anything, the GX series set it up so it looked awesome that Yike was so good in this one. Like, he actually did look truly, really, really good. Because I know people want to make that storyline after last split of like, he's the one they should have kept, not Mickey X. Like, it's like, to me, that it's not, you can't do that off one series. That's too complicated a topic to do with like dynamics of teams and who does what. And in this case, we're even talking about intangibles outside the game, like not necessarily inside the pure jungling all the time. So no, I'm with you. I think it was a fucking amazing performance. And like I say, against someone that beforehand was supposed to be like the most skilled player at the position. So if anything, you'd expect he's going to dominate Yike, and that's how Fnatic's going to win the series. So I think that was a big time performance, because I actually thought in that series it just shows that Razork is still important to Fnatic. If he can't get going, mate, then you're fucked. I mean, as you said, DeadShadow, I looked it up. You're right. They got like fuck all objectives like ever in this series, pretty much. Which on paper, if you tell me you have Mickey X and Razork, like surely we're gonna get some fucking dragons and the odd Baron or something. Like surely. So I mean, to me, yeah, what a fantastic series. Great job.
Do you have another point on this, or
no, you can keep going. Yeah.
But basically, like I fully agree. But I also think like Razork can't escape like criticism as well for this series, in my opinion, because like sure, Yike gapped him, but like to me, Razork is the key to Fnatic. You can blame his solo laners a bit, right? I'm not gonna say Oscar and Humanoid have been perfect in playoffs, right? But like you go on like Reddit threads, you go on Twitter, like it's perma-flaming Humanoid, it's perma-flaming Oscar, and like Razork seems to just be avoiding a lot of this, and he was nowhere in some of these games, and there's some situations. Not every situation. Humanoid died in side lanes a lot, really stupidly. I'm not defending him. Like Vladdy was the better mid laner, but like there are situations where Razork should be playing into his side, right? And Targamas and Yike appear in Humanoid's lane, and like Humanoid dies, and then on the next play, you could tell something happened in comms, because now they're just permanently on his lane for like the next 4 minutes, and then KC have decided, okay, we're going to do something else now. We're going to go and play something. We're just going to play the game normally, and it's like they didn't have. They were overcompensating or going too far in one direction or something else. And the thing which kind of, and to me, that is it's a bit on Yike, but if Fnatic want to win, and from everything that we can see, next split is this Fnatic roster's last chance, because what was the name of that guy? Dardo isn't like the GM anymore, and the new GM has come in, and there is no he's going to want to have a clean break, because Fnatic performed badly this year. He can just go and say, "Oh, it was Dardo's fault. It's Dardo's roster," right? But next off season, he's not, unless Fnatic win, in which case I'm sure he'll claim it's his masterful long-term planning. But if they don't win, this roster is going to get completely blown up, and I don't know who the new GM is, but he's going to build a completely new roster, right? And if this roster wants to have any chance, you cannot have a series where Razork is outperformed by Yike. Right, like in KC versus Fnatic, you just cannot. Right, it's just your top lane is not gonna hold. A lot of your aggressive plays are reliant on your jungle support being ahead. So you cannot afford for this to happen again. And with Razork, this guy is a guy that I think is an incredible jungler. I think he was the best jungler in the league last year, and he's just he got more this year. Right, he got Mickey this year. He got more experienced solo laners, and to me, if you should be the best and you're performing as the fourth best, to me that is just as bad as if you are predicted to be the sixth best and you perform as the ninth best, right? We don't hold people accountable for their expectation level. It's he's not trash, right?
Even though the funny thing is, Peter, people would flame the sixth or the ninth player more. You could actually argue. I actually think this is why on some level Humanoid sort of does justify it. The problem is when you look at people like Razork, you're thinking if you play better, you just win the championship. In some ways, that feels more egregious that you can't play your top game.
Yeah. And it's not. It's literally the pressure situations.
Yeah, absolutely.
You put them in the regular season. You put them in a series against GX, which they don't think they've got any chance of losing.
Well, the joke is, I said this. I did this for LCK, but if this was just the Premier League and there was no playoffs, the upsetting fucking Razork would be like legends of the league, mate. This fucking every split looks awesome, but the problem is you have to do it in the playoffs too.
Yep. Fully agree.
Okay, I've actually got a topic that is related to this KC versus Fnatic series. And the angle I'm going to take is it's actually how Caliste played, bearing in mind, because of the timing, he was playing against the just announced MVP of the league. Upset. If you look, right, first of all, it was actually Fnatic who beat Karmine Corp in the regular split. And I thought actually Upset looked awesome. By the way, he looked awesome the entire split. He basically never had a bad series if people don't know. He wasn't even the person versus SK that fucked up. He was other people, Humanoid dive in and stuff like that. It was all sorts of other things. So I think if you look at where Caliste is in his career, his narrative it's not like he's been faker in every single time he was the best player. No, he's actually had times, we talked about earlier, he actually did get gapped by Super in that series. He had times previously, Hans Sama took care of him in the playoff finals last year. He's had times where people have, I would say, either veterans or the big names, Hans Sama upset. There's times when they've big brothered him and been sort of hey, you're really good, but you're not quite there yet. I'm still at this level. I think this was a big statement series, actually. He looked fucking great in this one. He even got to do what he's been trying to do 1 million times. It finally worked. He actually pulled out a Draven, and this time they won the fucking game. By the way, I've said this before, one of the metrics I've used, I know coaches can appreciate this, is when people keep trying a pick like that, and you're looking at the gamepedia but they lose all the games. That means that in scrims it does work really well, or into that team, and you always have to assume that the coach isn't an idiot. He is picking it for a reason. He's allowing that pick because he thinks basically what they're doing is they go, but this time it'll work. Well, this time it did work. This will look fucking great. And by the way, I know another reason why if you're a Caliste in KC you want to keep trying to establish that Draven pick is because when you actually have it, Hans Sama showed us this, that is such an especially in faders, that's going to be such an extra valuable tool in the draft that someone has to fear the Draven, or if they see it they have to change their whole comp. You want to have that little extra bit of pressure. So I thought this series was a great statement series. If you're a big Caliste fan, isn't this exactly what you want? Now he maybe does the run to the finals again, then he gets his chance to battle Hans Sama again. It's a great narrative setup. Whereas I feel if he'd have lost this one, bearing in mind Upset was the MVP, it would have cooled some of the flames on how hot the Caliste hype was. Especially because remember, if they'd have lost, there'd been no MSI, no AWC. Then I tell you what, that not only would Winter Split have faded, because remember everyone's going to say Winter Split matters the least, but I think everyone, because of the format, is already over first stand. I don't think anyone gives a fuck about that tournament. So I think it's actually really important for people like Caliste and KC to keep progressing to get to that MSI. So I thought this was a massive series. So I'm going to say Caliste versus the MVP. My good point. DeadShadow, what did you think?
I fully agree with you, Thorin. I actually think that Caliste is I don't know, this kid has something, right? He has this sort of aura. I think these 2 years on him, I don't remember any rookie debut for as long as I can remember, either in NA or Europe, that had like this sort of level. This kid can grab the game by his own, and he can carry. He's done such things as like on Winter calculating the amount of mana for the
Oh, yeah,
last
sure.
spell on mid.
Sure.
Yeah, that's that agile play on mid a few weeks ago. So
Was Zansama yet?
exactly, like this kid is out of this world, and I think that's very good for us. I think the fact that he's on KC, a big org like you said, with all this fan base that they adore him, I think makes it even greater, because I actually think we need those type of like Bjergsen players, these type of players that we can look up to, and like this guy can maybe carry my region to some extent. I don't want to say it that way, of course, but we need players like these that we can look up to, which gives hope to not only like his team but as well to the community, to the other players, and like, oh, one day I want to be like Caliste. How many players nowadays have grown to be mid laners and they've looked up to Bjergsen years ago, right? Or Caps or Xpac, right? So we need players like this, and I think that Caliste starting like this, as young as he is, I think 18 or 19, right? It's out of this world, and I actually believe that if he does win Super, if he does go into final, if he does win on Summer, I think he's proved this point. Like I think he proved that I just arrived, I just beat Upset the way I did, I beat Super the way I did. I've been beating Super for ages now. I beat Ansama. I don't think International did perfectly, but I don't think he did bad.
Yeah.
I think it was his first event as well, right? So I really hope Caliste keeps thriving. I really hope he keeps on having this performance, and I really want to see like this KC on MSI, on World Cup, and onwards. I think this guy going up to players like Pace, like Gaming, like Ruler, I think Viper, these are the type of matchups that I think coming to next year, we're going to see even more of him. He's going to come on a different caliber, right? So, yeah, I don't know what else to say. I think this guy just proves us wrong whenever without him. I think he does play after play. The way he steps up on mid waves, fully confident. The way he dodges skill shots on mids. Sometimes you even might guess that he's actually inting, But this guy just manages to dodge everything. He looks like he's inting, but he's actually not. So it's just insane, I think. It's very good to have someone like him on the region. I think it's going to be an inspiration to many other players, not only inside the French community. Back then, when Adam came up to LEC, I remember a lot of flow players in France actually were, oh, I'm like Adam Junior, like I'm trying to learn Garen, trying to learn Darius. So I really think that players
maybe
like
not the best player to copy, but fair enough.
yeah, but you get the point, right?
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, true. By the way, I also do agree. That's a good point as well. Actually, one thing about Caliste, I always just focus on his game and the mechanics, but you're right. He also does have that like in unmistakable quality, the it factor, the aura. That is big as well. That, if anything, that's sometimes more important than the skills. Like, if I would actually give the comparison, it is like to an Uzi type figure, because listen, Pete will know this. I think there's a bunch of ADCs that were better even in the LPL than Uzi. But I'll tell you what, no one had Uzi's aura, mate. And the key thing is, if you have the aura and the skills, like the joke could be Super's aura, he just doesn't have fucking generational hands, does he? He's just a good player. Like, I agree, that combo together is fire.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is he's so unhateable as well. This is, normally with players, even Uzi, like, when he was coming up, since this is the week that Uzi got his.
I don't think I've ever actually seen it. The joke is, he wasn't the one who hyped himself on that later key particle. I've never actually seen Caliste say any crazy out of pocket shit. Like, he's actually done a pretty good job. Like, he's sort of selling his character. I think he's doing a good job.
Yep. And he's always so positive, and like this. Like it's a good thing. Okay, this is a good role model. But even when like people like Caps and Uzi were coming up, like Uzi had that split where he just played mid because he was just like so triggered at his mid laner after Worlds in season 3. Like there's the Caps of the Death Note list. That Caps used to sign when he was like 17. Are you disagreeing with me? It's so.
Mate, he was putting Faker on there. Enough said.
It was so funny looking back. Like some of the things Caps used to say in solo queue. But like this guy, he has. Like, as far as you can tell outside of the game, he's like a model professional. He like doesn't say anything in solo queue. He just lets his gameplay do the talking. It's so hard to like find anything wrong with this guy. Like, in a sense, it's a good thing maybe that the fans overhype him, because then you can go and blame the fans, and then like.
Well, the joker, as mentioned earlier, is you don't even need to hate anyone, Kissy. Their fans will let you off someone to cheer against anyway. Like, the fans are doing that. They're carrying that part. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. But I mean, like, obviously, like I thought this guy was insane last year, so I'm a card carrying Caliste fan. But at some point when you like a player, you like start to think, am I over? You know, is this guy? Do I over like this guy? You know, like is there something that am I letting my bias go in the way? So
Right.
you know, you kind of check your bias and go look for other things, and like there's just nothing, and that to me that's a good thing. You know, I hope that nothing, you know, like I hope he continues to be in that, because I think in Europe we need some kind of positive role models. A lot of the role models that sometimes people follow in Europe are not the best role models. Let's leave it at that. Like some of the people that have been role modeled by the community maybe were not that great people. But like what I would say is the big thing for me in the Fnatic series was, you know, at the start of the split, Mickey gave his interview where he said, "Oh, you know, KC can't escape us in lane swaps anymore. We're going to stop them in lane." And what were the 3 picks in the most important playoff series that KC picked into them? It was Draven, into Caliste, it was Lucian Nami, and it was MF, right? Which are like the biggest lane bully lanes you can possibly play, and they play purely for lane.
Swaggy as fucking it.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, that deserves some credit. Yeah.
Absolutely. Right, okay. Well, speaking of things I like and are really good, how about these wonderful Raycon earbuds, everyday earbuds? If you didn't know, they have all sorts of great features. Like, for example, they have a 32-hour battery life, so you don't even need to remember to charge them each day. They also have that thing where if you forget to charge them, you only need 10 minutes of the quick charge function that will give you 90 minutes of listening time. So basically, I always tell people, it basically means unless you literally only remember 1 minute before you go out the door, if you even remember like, oh, I forgot to charge them, but there's like 20 minutes before you go out, don't worry, you've got time still. You'll still be able to get enough for your commute, go to the gym, whatever, have them on at school, at work, when you're doing all the spreadsheets and stuff or whatever. They have the active noise cancellation, which is obviously if actually you were on using like price conscious product like this, that's normally considered a high end feature, but they actually have them here. It works really, really well. They are also, I actually find them quite comfortable. I'm someone who, in general, I'm like a boomer. I don't go around the street wearing the big headphones or whatever, but I prefer headphones over earbuds generally. These earbuds are really nice, though. They don't like feel they jam in your ear or whatever. They hold in quite well as well. They also do that thing where they sort of like fit comfortably, so it feels like it automatically gives you a little bit of a noise cancellation effect because they've sealed to some degree. And the classic thing about Raycons is they're basically like half the price of the really premium headphones. So I think they're really excellent. I've used them a whole bunch myself. Everyone on an LFN who has them says they're really good. And you can crucially get 15% off as a customer via watching our show, because if you go to buyraycon.com/league show, it's all one word, you get 15% off site-wide, which also means everything on their website. So right now, they're offering up to 15% off site-wide when you go to buyraycon.com/league show, all one word. buyraycon.com/league show, all one word. You might think that's annoying when people repeat things, but this is also the show where I'm going to say Froggen, Larson, Reckless, Alex Sitchin, whatever. We repeat everything. It's the LEC. That's how it works. So anyway, speaking of repeating things, what's bad in the LEC right now, DeadShadow? What's annoying you at the moment? By the way, this is going to queue up nicely familiar. So what was bad at the moment, mate? What's bad?
Well, I brought up the point about Fnatic series. Let's dive deep into it. I did want to mention a bit more about Humanoid, because I actually think that Humanoid...
and Peter's a fucking Humanoid defense lawyer, isn't he? So you saw his job he did earlier. So let's get into it, DeadShadow. Let's go. I'm ready.
I do think that Humanoid, like, as a race method, is himself like as the Humanoid playoff star, you know, the Humanoid international events. So I do think that Humanoid on this type of series, he needs to cement himself, you know. I do agree with Peter though. For me, when I watched that series of Fnatic, I didn't know what to think initially, you know. Like, I saw so many mistakes about everyone, not only solo laners. I brought up Humanoid because I do think that he was the one that maybe had the tools to do something more. But across all the roles, Fnatic did some of the mistakes that we have not seen them done before, you know, or maybe we've seen them here and there, but across all the games, we've seen so many individual mistakes that for me are so basic, you know, things that these guys know more than all the other rookies that they're playing versus, right? And I don't know exactly what happened to Humanoid. I think specifically it was really bad. I do believe that it was a lot about mid jungle. I think Razork as well was really, really bad. And that's kind of like the core of Fnatic, right? Sure, we want to play through bot. We want to make sure that Oscar is not losing and 0-10. And we want to make sure that Upset is 10-0 and double down on his feeling, you know. But if my mid jungle is not able to get flash, if my mid jungle is not able to get river control, then what can I do, you know? And I even think that Upset to some extent did part of his role, you know. He did not play perfect, but it's not like, okay, he lost the game, but he did not win us the game. But yeah, for me, Humanoids, I think on game 1, game 2, it's where I got the most disappointed. Even on game 3, he was starting to come back on the Yone performances. But starting with game 1, I think it just showed us, together with the rest of Fnatic, what Grabs was actually meaning by the lack of effort, the lack of discipline, the mistakes that they usually see in scrims, which is, there's a lot of that simply have no reason, you know. Either it's like Peter is saying, he's dying on side because he's maybe going a bit stupid mode and he's going a bit too deep when his team has no tempo and he has no over, when he has no pressure from jungle support and then mid team is fogging, or he's just dying because his team is not overing, you know. But there's things like, for example, his first death on the Victor game, on game 1 draft. Yes. I think it's draft that they need to kind of cement themselves slowly, you know, get the pace of the game slowly, get to that front to back later on. And Vic is just like 300 HP on the turret at 9 minutes of the game with TP up. He already has gold for Seraph's Embrace. His support is showing on top wave with Rel. His jungle just based because enemy team knows he has Thunder Sky to buy, right? So KC, of course, will just dive him, right? I think that's very clear. I think if you ask Humanoid, oh, did you know you're going to get Dove? Yeah, I did, you know. So for me, it's very weird that these decisions of, okay, I'm going to stay under my turret, I'm going to catch that extra wave instead of recalling and TPing back, you know, and coming with my jungle to help me get this wave. So it's these type of decisions that we saw here and there, not only from him, but I think specifically from him. I got mostly disappointed with Humanoids on the lack of discipline and even the lack of micro. And that's what I wanted to mention, the Yone game. I think the Yone game, he was starting to kind of get a bit of pressure back, you know. He got, I think, 2 solo kills on sides. Then he proceeds to insta-die on side, either because he has no pressure from his team or he's just going a bit deep. But he missed so many Q3s of Yone. He missed so many ultis with Yone. On the game 2 with the Rise, I think the draft is not that easy to play. But I felt like Fnatic, with the amount of knowledge that they had, they know, okay, how can I win this game? You know, how can I be creative to pull out a win? We know that front to back team fighting is not going to happen. The enemy team will outrange us, and the team can just play the Sky back, and we are super low range. We have a Xayah Rise. It's very hard to play. We cannot really kill the Galio side, but maybe can we overload the side? Maybe can we do a fast play on side, chunk this guy, get a bit of pressure, rotate it to mids? And I feel like Fnatic just looked like almost like a desperate Fnatic. You know, if you hide the name tags, you will say that this is not Fnatic. You know, this is a team that's, it's for like rookies players that don't know how to progress the game. They're not really trying to see the openings. They're not trying to see the windows. And it just felt to me so surreal that, yeah, it's the all Fnatic decision making, but Humanoid specifically, I think micro-wise, he was really, really poor. But that's where I agree with Peter, which is I think specifically Razork as well has had a terrible series. I cannot take that away from him. You know, I think Razork is as a player.
But it's weird. Someone on Reddit had the banger line. They said he even got outsmited by a GSQ, which is like, whoever, they come up with good ones every now and then, mate. That was a pretty good one.
It's crazy, you know. And for me, it was just weird because you will see a team like Yike and Targamas that they don't even have like amazing jungle support synergy, you know. Yeah, they're like good, but I mean, yeah, you think about Razork, Mickey, I think those guys will just, okay, let's get these openings, let's control this river, let's make sure Upset is getting his lane prowess, let's make sure that Humanoid is catching these sideways. But it just felt a desperate Fnatic, you know, a Fnatic that didn't have like a plan or a prep. I'm unsure to what extent the fact that they had the match before, like 2 days before, of
GX.
Giants, yeah, GX. Yep. If it could affect them, you know, because if I'm KC, I'm probably expecting 1 week before to be playing versus Fnatic, you know, so maybe that can also have its advantage. But
also looked like they took it a bit easy against Heretics too. They were way more locked in this series, mate. Yeah,
exactly. But let's be real, a team like Fnatic that is meant to win, like a team that like cement themselves with these players, cannot use this as an excuse.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Like, when the time comes, they have to perform. And even though I'm focusing a bit more on Humanoid here, I do believe that Fnatic as a whole seemed so lost.
So I've got I've got a short question and a long question follow up. First question is, the short question is, do you blow this up before summer, or do you give them one more chance?
For me, that's actually my ugly point, which is,
okay,
what can we expect from this?
We can cover it later. Okay, we'll come to that because that's a real bang. Okay, I mean, I guess the thing I kind of want to, my contribution for this Fnatic thing is, I mean, for anyone who knows Grabs and who's known Grabs for like his entire career, you will never see Grabs throw his. Grabs is like, he is like the ultimate shield coach.
He was
like,
the original coach that I used to say plays defense when he comes on the shows, man. So I would agree to come on. Yeah.
Yeah, like I mean, you think that I play defense? No, nobody played defense like Grabs. Grabs is like the master.
No, he quite literally takes credit for things that weren't his fault. I can tell you, he's one of those guys. Yeah. Yes,
absolutely. I can't compete. I can't compete with this, right? But for Grabs to tweet after losing, okay, I'm gonna just read the tweet. Sure. Okay, it's like, not surprised by the result, surprised by how little of a fight we've shown today. It's also getting tiring to pretend the efforts day to day are enough. Everything will stay internal, but the tone will change for something, right? And for Grabs, like, I mean, if this is Youngbuck or somebody tweeting this, that's one thing. But for Grabs to tweet that, holy moly, things must be bad behind the scenes, right? Like and I agree with you, right? It's just the lack of creativity. Like, I didn't think that they were favored in that Rise game. I think it's kind of hard to play their comp, right? That was Interlution Army, right? And like that kind of thing is, it's hard, right? But they showed no creativity, and that's what bothers me, right? Like here, if you've got the Rise, what do? You go and play 4-1 comp. You push out one side, maybe Rise bases, fogs out through your other side laner, or you just sit in 2 lanes, or like either sitting in 2 lanes in a 1-4 setup, or like in a 1-3-1 with your like weak side guy literally underneath his tier 2 tower, right? But you do something in that kind of a setup, and you threaten. You like be creative. You try something, right? Like, and when they're trying things, they're too rushed. They haven't got the proper setup. It looks like desperation. It looks like there's no planning, right? And if this is Heretics, that's one thing. A team with 3 rookies, you can accept that, right? Like 3 rookies with like a non-primary shot caller, right, on their Rise. But we know Fnatic's primary shot caller is Humanoid, and we know that this is a team that historically plays very well around their mid laners. In fact, the reason they lost an upper bracket against G2 is because they tried to play around their top laner and it looked garbage, right? Like they couldn't play, like Oscar couldn't stack a wave into a dive, right? So we were saying last week on the show, you have to play through Humanoid this week because playing through top lane isn't working out, and it looked almost as bad playing through top lane this week. Not quite as bad. It wasn't. Like last week was really, really bad, but this week was bad. But that they've spent like 10 times as much scrim time playing through Humanoid as they have playing through Oscar, right? And to me, that's really, really, really rough. And yeah, I mean, I wish so Upset, you can't really blame Upset because he has losing lanes and like losing early priority. Like it's not that easy to do something. I mean, maybe the criticism you can have of Upset is maybe he should think about picking the Dravens a bit more and things.
Sure.
But you can't really blame him. Like that's like a soft thing, right? Yes. So I think he's the one who kind of escapes it the most. And it's not like Razok had nothing, right, in the series, or Mickey had nothing in the series, but they just weren't doing anything, right? But my criticism of them is that of Razok and Mickey, because these guys are like top 1 in their roles, right? Like potential.
Yeah.
They're not playing through Humanoid. And Humanoid is dying in a lot of very, very the kind of way that a Gold 1 analyst on Reddit can see that is a bad mistake, right? You don't need to watch a show like this for us to tell you that like he's running it down. Like anyone can see he's running it down, right? But yeah, for me, I was disappointed because although they even had an advantage coming into the series because Casey had to play the day before, right? They even had an advantage and they couldn't capitalize on it. And to me, it's very, very disappointing, right? And that's kind of all I have to say.
Sure. I mean, first of all, I will throw this out there that if you actually go, and I saw there was like a translated comment that like Targamas said, I think in French, I'm going to assume on some stream, because obviously all those people go back to their like local streams and tell all the gossip and all that. Supposedly, he'd even said something like quite politely, apparently, that basically like the weakness of Fnatic's the solo laners, like despite the fact, by the way, for some bizarre reason, Oscarin had decided to start trash talking. And like, for me, I don't know if you're aware of this, but one, that guy's actually a real Korean mate that was in like semis and worlds. Like, your trash talk isn't going to get to him. And then 2, I don't think he gives a fuck about you, mate. You're just some guy, again, who I said looks like Leonardo DiCaprio playing, what was the joke I had? It was like fucking It's Leonardo DiCaprio playing Max Waldo in the LS biopic. That's what you look like, Oscar. So first of all, you look sprout-faced, mate. You look like you just came out the womb 4 seconds ago. So the trash talk didn't work, and also heavily backfired on you because you got absolutely dunked on. So the problem is, right, basically that Targamas comment, I think is quite telling, because what he said was that this was the team they scrimmed the most. All you need to know is this: if you saw the All-Pro team, the All-Pro first team is the KC top side and the Fnatic bot side. So I actually think that implies, like, even KC think the bot lane of Fnatic is actually better. But the problem, as you're getting to there, Peter, is good luck already having a bot lane. Like, spoiler, they've tried that in fucking MKOI. It doesn't work. You have to have the rest of the map as well. Like, you can't get that fucking... this is one of the reasons I'm with you. Upset carries the least actual blame for this one. Certainly did not carry, and I'm with you. There are times I would like to see him be the one who's balls, but I've told people this story before. He basically told me he'll never pick a Draven. Like, he's not going to take that kind of risk early on and then risk being behind. Because obviously in that scenario, he has trust issues. He doesn't want to be the guy where, like, at level 3, I can't play the game anymore. He has to always believe, it's a bit more like reckless, like, I have a way into the game or I have a way out of the fight or something. That's just who he is as a player now. But in general, he does stick to that style, and you know he's going to play that style going in, so it's not like that's a surprise to you. And then on Mickey X, I always say this, I don't actually put that much blame on a lot of these series on Mickey X, because I actually think in a fucked up sense, he's actually being a good teammate to Razork and Humanoid, and he's just going in, and he's just doing it like, right, well, if you're going in, then so am I guess that's my job. Like, I could just stand outside and make you look like a dickhead and losing the fight, but we're trying to win these games, aren't we? Like, on some level, I think Mickey X is just trying to win. The problem is, this is an issue we keep coming back to, is Humanoid is probably the biggest fucking blue balls player of all time in the LEC, because everyone knows he actually can be really good when it doesn't matter, and he always does this thing, which is why, as much as everyone laughs at Fnatic, I don't blame them in the same way other people do for having Humanoid. I'll give you an example. Say some fan goes, just get the next Vladdy. First of all, there was only 1 or 2 Vladdy type players. Like, everyone thinks there's 15 of them in the RLs. That's why everyone swaps out. But as you can go and ask those, the Vitalities, the SK, all the other squads, the big problem with Humanoid is this: he is better than all those other players. He's just not as good as the absolute elite ones. So you're actually in the nightmare scenario in sports where if you kick him, you could be worse. But if you keep him, you won't win. But you also can't get the player who's better than him, especially now that Cap's side. So you also can't. So you're actually in the hardest spot ever, because basically, if you're the Fnatic and they had the huge contract, you just keep rolling the dice that eventually he does it. And also, I'll just say this: if anyone knows Humanoid's career, I'm sorry. The real reason he's a nightmare is because if somehow there was like a third lower bracket and they could still go to MSI, Peter, the joke would be this guy could play small in the big domestic game, which he's done his whole career. But then if he went to MSI, he would have like one game, I'm telling you, against like Cream or fucking Zeka, where he'd actually look really good. And you'd go, oh, wait, fuck, Humanoid's back. That's why we all do that shit every fucking time. So the problem is, this guy just has some sort of like thing in his brain when the big pressure game comes. Basically, like you're saying, Pete, every time you go, right, your turn, Humanoid, time to step up, that's when he'll always have this, the dodgy game, the scoffed game. And by the way, I think this one was pretty egregious because, like, for example, these are all his champions. These are all the ones he likes. He fucking loves the Yorn and the Victor and all that. Those are all his also. Have you noticed the weird thing that started to happen with Humanoid is he started to do that bizarre thing where it's almost like he thinks he's playing solo queue with his builds. Like, he does builds that like start to go down a pathway. Like, how was that going to win the game with this comp for? You know what I mean? Like, you're doing a weird, like, that doesn't make sense to go to that next. Like, surely you go towards this to have a chance to win the game still. So he's also got something weird going on in his head. And I'll just throw this out there as a last angle because I want to actually see what you guys think about this, which is, I'm sorry, I actually think the person who are you ready, Peter? I'll set this up very carefully. The person who actually fucked Fnatic the most is Elyoya. You're going to go, what? Because the 1 year where Elyoya played with Humanoid, and if you remember that style, the style of that team was like, just get us to the mid game, then Kazi like shot calls the team fights, and then Humanoid sort of like does map movements, and then Elyoya cleans up all the fights. The joke is, because Elyoya was the rookie, that's why Fnatic signed Humanoid. I actually said this on Twitter. You actually cannot blame Dardo for that signing, by the way. At the time, remember, Humanoid had won back-to-back splits. They almost beat fucking Damwon and made that final of MSI, and then at the Playoffs of Worlds, they played the Damwon that was unbeatable also. So, like, if you go back and look at that, it's like, mate, like, what a fucking sick year. If you have a chance to sign that player, you do it immediately. And then obviously we won't get into it, but like actually part of the problem Fnatic have had is that the entire market collapsed after that, and NA's market collapsed too, and all the investment. So the real issue is you could never move the contract. And I'm sorry, if you know the status Fnatic has been in for the last like 7 or 8 years, they can't do like what they do in the Premier League, where you just eat someone's contract and like just pay him, but then he doesn't play, then you bring that's not even on the table. You have to play him. I'm sorry. Again, like I said earlier, you have to just gamble, even if it's happened a million times, that this time he's going to have the big series he's finally going to beat the player he's supposed to. He's going to win you the league. You have to do it, I'm afraid. Like you've already painted yourself into that corner, and it would just be silly to say fuck it and bench him and put like a rando ERL player in, or bring like Abidagi or some stupid shit people on Reddit would suggest. Like that wouldn't be the move. But I have to say, I thought this was a mega underwhelming one, because this is like, forget Fnatic as the org. He's done this a lot in his career, Peter. He's done this thing where he keeps the moment you need him to do it, where he's proven it all the other time. But that big moment, that's where he always seems to trip over. And I do wonder about it, because I'll tell you what, Peter, when I look at their careers, I do think that if you look at a player like Elyoya, it's different to play with a jungler like that than a different type of, than the Razork jungler, mate. I wonder, what do you think? You were obviously there in that team. What do you think of that? Because that's the year everyone remembers the most fondly, mate. That was the one where he was supposed to be the next Caps 2021. That was the one we all loved.
I mean, that was the year after I left, right?
Sure. You must know some shit, though. Come on.
Yeah. But I mean, what I would say is, we don't give credit to the Na Wukong maestro in the top lane. I think Ahmed carried a lot of team fights on his champion
in the finals, certainly, yeah.
Champion Ocean, champion Stream, I would say. But look, I think the thing about that team is, even in the times where that Mad Lions team, the reason why the Rogue Mad Lions rivalry should have become like a big rivalry, right? It didn't, because of the less said about Rogue the better, right? But basically, like, Rogue were the team that they played stable, they had good mechanics, they would play the paint by numbers approach, they would always play standard, and they would always get into a position where you should win the game and you should close the game as like a top tier team. And how would Mad Lions beat them? Mad Lions would beat them from like being 4k down or like 3k down. They'd have like a crazy side lane play, or like they'd have a Rise ult behind, or they would have like some armored flank, or they would do something really, really creative that, like, they knew what Rogue were going to do all the time, because everyone knew what Rogue were going to do all the time, right? It's just that they were too bad they were too inefficient in how they were playing the game, so Rogue would just crush you with efficiency. But Mad Lions would always find these little tiny moments, these little split-second calls that would like throw Rogue off their game, and eventually the more Rogue played them, the more Rogue expected it to happen, even going, accelerating into that like reverse sweep. There was a reverse sweep where they were getting crushed in game 3, and they should have lost game 3, and they should have lost game 4, and then they won both of those games, and then they got the reverse sweep because Rogue were just done by game 5, right? But like that is what made Mad Lions stand out, and that is what, like, Humanoid, so Elyoya maybe was a part of it, but there was no way the Humanoid was not like the one who was triggering some of that creativity. It was Kazi and it was Humanoid, right?
I'm just saying, have you ever seen that Humanoid since? Where is he?
Yeah, and I mean, like, look, you asked me the thing that I want to see. I want to see the Kazi Humanoid team up, in the future.
Yeah. That's the solution, is it? Right, one more player, please. One more. Okay.
Come and rescue Kaiser from ERLs, please. No, but I think that Kazi and Humanoid played off each other really, really well, both outside of game and inside of game, right? And I would say the one, I'm a Humanoid defender because I see I've seen him at his best, right? Like,
by the way, I'll even add, just to make this point really clear, I actually do think he got snubbed on the All-Pro. I think he should have been an All-Pro mid laner, in my opinion. I think he was better than Caps, for example. The problem now is everyone's going to laugh because of the series and go, no, he wasn't. Like, no, that's a regular split. The regular split, he was good, mate. This was like a bounce-back split, I think, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's even an argument. So Jojo was second. I think there's even an argument.
I think that's fair.
Second.
Yeah.
I think I would have put Jojo second, but like if you put Humanoid second, I wouldn't like judge you. Like, who was the person who put Kamiloo like first team? Like, I wouldn't judge you like if you put that on your ballot. But I mean, the thing is, so I've seen Humanoid at his best, but I also have seen him at his worst. Right, the times where things get really, really hard, really, really. Like, he sees things on a really high level, and sometimes when his teammates aren't on that level, he gets frustrated easily, and Kazi was really, really good at drawing the sting out of it whenever that happened. But the thing is, this is why it makes so little sense that this team performs this way, because there is nobody on this team who shouldn't be able to see the game at the pace that Humanoid is seeing it, right? Like, there were clearly some situations last year where Noah and Jun were like, especially Jun, right, in those playoff series against G2, like, he was off the pace, right? And you could maybe say, like, my biggest defense of Humanoid is last summer, he was not the one responsible for throwing those leads. It was Noah and Jun, to me.
Yeah, that's fair.
Were like primarily to blame. But I have no excuse for him this split, right? Like, he is on a team with some of the smartest support in the league. A jungler who, at least in the early, a jungler who, even if he doesn't necessarily see the game in the same way in the mid game, is willing to follow your calls to the death, right? That's what you'll say about Razork. And he has Upset, who is always going to, like, Upset will always contribute when you don't have a plan. He will have a plan, right? Like, he's not going to be the one who gives you the primary plan, but he will always have a backup plan if you're not sure what to do. The only person on this team who maybe is different is Oscar, and like, I mean, I can see, like, so this is something I had in the back of my mind when Oscar joined Fnatic, because the thing people don't know about Oscar is Oscar was always this insane player in ERLs, right? Like he was a guy who was good enough to go to LEC 18 months before he did.
Oh wow!
Right, because he joined mid-season in 23. I think.
It was after that you bench wonder or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right. But it was, I think it was Wonder, right? Like, but he was good enough in 2022. But the reason people didn't promote him is because there were two criticisms of Oscar, right? And I don't know if these are true now, but I'm saying in 2022, 2023, because we were scouting for top laners in this time period, right? So I know a lot about it. The thing people always said about Oscar, number one, needs happy team environment, really thrives with like positivity. Number two, is somebody who really struggles with pressure and is, I'm not going to say a choker because, I don't want people to quote it out of context, but is somebody who underperforms in high pressure situations, but isn't necessarily always a choker, kind of handled with enough positivity, right? And to put that guy on a team with Humanoid, like, you better have like insane positivity. Like, literally everyone on the rest of your team had better be shitting sunshines and rainbows, right? If you're going to have those two.
And you put them on Fnatic, right, the team that's always scrutinised. That's like joining Manchester United, mate. You're going to immediately, day one, you're going to have the pressure, yeah.
Like to me, the fact that he was even able to develop onto that team is, like, because he got better in his first year.
I think every year he's improved, mate. He looked really good earlier this year, yeah.
Yeah, at least in regular season, but like his first 5 games on that Fnatic were dreadful. Like he was, people may say, "Oh, you were bad now," but like he was shockingly bad, right? Like in that series. Ironically, I think it was a game against Evie, and like where they didn't have to go to the studio because I think he was. I remember this because it was us. We were playing super well from home, and then Fnatic got COVID. Or like one person on their staff got COVID, and then we had to play them from home, and then it took our complete momentum. But I remember that was the one. And then after that game, he kind of got confidence and he built confidence. And but he's never been like insane in playoffs. But for me, this is so to bring it back to Humanoid. This is my frustration, right? Because I can see the things that I've seen in like past teams with Humanoid. Like I can see the issue in a Humanoid Oscar roster, which on an org like Fnatic. And I don't think there's any problem, I think, the rug got pulled under Fnatic. Like, obviously, Humanoid's contract now is I don't know how much it is, but it's probably way, it's like probably like 2 or 3 times.
I was told, look, it's ending this year, but I was told in past years that there's 0 chance this contract will get moved. He will just be here the whole time.
I mean, like, and I think that at the time, if you thought esports economics would keep going high, I can't blame Dado too much, right? But
by the way, I'll even throw that out there. It's actually the LCS LTA one that kills you, because I think actually you would have, Peter. I think what eventually would have happened is you could have gotten like a Team Liquid or a Cloud9 to take this contract, or a Fly. Someone would have gambled from LCS eventually. You could have at least gotten like most of the contract, but the problem now is you just get none of it. You never get what this guy was paid. It was crazy, what he.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I don't blame him for picking Humanoid, but I do blame him for not picking the right team around him, right? And all
right, wait a minute. You're playing some defense now, because I noticed he took this digression there with Oscar, which is a good angle because Oscar certainly hasn't been at all. I will say this, Peter. This guy had Wonder and still had problems. You know what I mean? Like, he's had a lot of people at this point in time. Him and Razork. The problem now is I saw someone on Reddit say it, mate. I don't know if this is true, but this stat sounds right. They said Razork and Humanoid collectively in Fnatic have now had 14 teammates and 7 coaches, bro. Eventually, they have to look in the mirror and go, I'm sort of the common trend in all these rosters. Like, it's just you. You're at this point, you keep saying, like, put them with the right players. Who? Fucking Jesus and Gandhi. What teammates are we going to give these guys? Like, fucking hell, mate.
Yeah. I mean, I think the issue is that, obviously, after Humanoid, there is a big fall-off, right? Like, I mean,
like I said, it's hard to replace him. I don't know who I'd replace him with, but it's hard for me to say who you pull the trigger on.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at Jackie's, like, Jackie's is not the guy. Like, I mean, Fnatic fans, be careful what you wish for, But, like, what I would say is you could handle it if you were guaranteed worlds, which Fnatic
in
past years
that's a good point,
worlds, right?
Yes.
but now
There's a world you come fourth now. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Like they're not guaranteed worlds at all.
True.
And I think that is that's the problem. And if there was if we were playing triple elimination, I would still have a little bit.
Go on.
I mean, I wouldn't have huge amounts of faith, but I would still think that Fnatic.
Of course you would, Peter. Of course you would.
20% chance, but I wouldn't say they had a 0% chance despite seeing G2 and despite seeing the G2 series.
Put it this way, guys: the day that Peter ever actually does give on Humanoid, just run. At that point, the stock's 0. It's just tanked. Everyone's broke. He probably can't click a mouse at that point in time.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see Humanoid on a team with Kazi in the future, but yeah, in any case, like I think that the point, it's hard to know exactly what's going on behind the scenes. Again, people's reputation 5 years ago is not the same as their reputation now, right? Like, I mean, Upset's reputation as a passive, runaway team fighter, just preserving your KDA is not realistic to what's happened in the last 2 years and not realistic to the series, And if we're going to criticize Caliste for not picking Draven, it's the same logic that Upset not picking Draven. It's the same logic, right?
Yeah.
That we have in our mind. He's a bit more risk averse, but it's not like he's shirking his responsibility in team fights, right? He is going down with the ship, and I think that is that. Whereas Upset 5 years ago he's not the same guy, right? So I want to hesitate. But just from what I've been told about people behind the scenes, and what I've experienced from people behind the scenes, it seems like a rough mix. But yeah, at some point, I mean, I really don't want to overgo your point. All
right, I'll give you one point, Peter. I guess I was actually myself too reductive. Look, he has had 1 million teammates, so I would say this. I don't think it's fair to say he has to get 1 million more chances because he's had a lot of really good teams. But I'll tell you what, if you're going to go on the angle of he didn't have the right blend of personalities, all right, here's what they maybe should have done, but it's too late now, is maybe we should have given him 1 year with Jankos or something like that. Maybe that's the sort of, but then again, to be fair though, I say that. Last year we would have said if you give him Mickey X, that'd be it, you know what I mean? So it's like, again, how much does this fucking guy need, to perform? Come on.
Yeah.
Pull your finger out, as we say in England. Anyway, sadly now, unfortunately, it is actually Peter's point, so we'll all just continue to sit and listen to Peter regale us with his wonderful insight scenes. So what is your bad point, Peter? Come on, hit me with it.
Okay, so I figured that we'd spend most of the series talking about KC versus Fnatic, so let's go.
Don't worry, we'll be coming back later as well, so keep going.
Yeah, I assume we're coming back later.
Of course, it's the main topic.
Is our intermission, This is our intermission for shitting on Fnatic and praising KC, So my bad point is that Carlsen, Kamiloo, and Lot all had kind of rough playoff series in the lower bracket. They're rookies. It's kind of like expected that things would be a bit rough. I don't say stand in that. But I do think that they, at this point in their career, they're progressing enough. But at the end of your first year is where the market comes down as a rookie, and the org has to decide: do you need to double down, or do you need to flip it again, right, on the roulette wheel? I think people should double down a bit more on their scouting if they really think their scouting is good. But essentially, let's be clear, Lot is a big reason GX lost, right? Why did he lose? His flanking angles were not that good. His rage management wasn't that good. His flanking was he's TPing into fight before his team is set up and things like this. All things that he was doing in ERLs already. Laning phase and side laning was always good in ERLs. It's purely team fighting and trigger pull that is Lot's weakness. And Carlsen and Kamiloo showed a few weaknesses in team fighting and a few weaknesses in laning phase, right? And, I don't think you should be kicking any of these guys, but I think that, let's be clear, as Carlsen and Kamiloo, you need to improve your laning phase, right? At the moment, these guys can team fight at an LEC level, but they cannot lane at an LEC level, and that needs to improve. Because Heretics, after our show last week, I was joking about Heretics with 2.5k down a lot because I remember they won some games from 2.5k gold down. But I think their average gold deficit at 15 is some absurd number. It's really, really high. It's one of the highest in the major regions, which I'll go and check, which I didn't have. I had it in my mind, but it was basically, their average gold deficit, right, at 15 is 483 gold. Right, that's the average, including all the games that they win, including the games which are close.
That's crazy.
On average, they are a kill down, more than a kill down, every single game. right, at 15 minutes. And this is in a situation where, where like you just can't do that, right? Like it's impossible to play the game. And I think that all of the mid game things that they do, like Heretics, are really, really smart team in the game. They do, because they're so practiced at playing from behind gold. They are the team that play like Mad Lions in 2020, 21 to bring it full circle with Humanoid. They are the team that do all these really cute tricks and like numbers overloads and things like this because they have to every single game. But yeah, you as rookies, you need to step up and like frankly, you need to improve your laning phase. And I say that as a big Carlsen defender, less of a Kamiloo defender, but a big Carlsen. You need to be better at that. And from Lot's side, his team fighting needs to improve in summer. And you know, you've had 2 splits now. On Lot's side, I don't really see any improvement at all. I see like literal 0 improvement. Kamiloo, his laning got a bit better. To be fair, his laning phase when he joined LEC was like the worst that I think I've seen since like for at least 6 or 7 years, right? And so he's definitely improved. Carlsen has stepped up, but very, very small amount. But they need to like kick it in to gear because let's be clear, I love rookies. I think these guys all played really, really well. But these guys are responsible for why their team's lost, right? It's not a case of blaming them, kick them. It's just a case of you have now been shown by a team that is going to go to Worlds, maybe not to Fnatic, a team that's going to compete for Worlds, what you need to do to be in that group, now go and fix it, right? Or else, yeah, because you have to be better than Oscar, you have to be better than Humanoid if you want to go to Worlds, right? The 4th best mid laner, we would say, in the LEC is Humanoid, right? After playoffs, right? It's Vladdy, you have to be better than Vladdy, Jojo, Caps, or Humanoid, right? To even compete for Worlds, right? Or you have to be better than Canna. Okay, Oscar maybe is possible, but you have to be better than Canna. You have to be better than Merwin when Merwin will get counterpick a lot, and you have to be better than BB, right? Or you don't go to Worlds, right? So this is the thing that they have to show because at some point these players, when you are bringing up a rookie, this is who they have to beat. Right, you know, it's not enough to be the 4th best player in the league, right? You have to be a top 3 player in your position in your first 2 years, right? And yeah, this week was a good marker for where how much the rookies have progressed, but how much they still have to go. And Stend, I think, is there already, so I don't really have too much to say.
Right, the 3 players there were Lot, Carlsen, and Kamiloo. What do you think, DeadShadow?
I fully agree with Lot on Peter on this. Last year when I saw Lot, I actually thought he was pretty good on LFL. I think that I wasn't really expecting him to go to LEC, actually. Maybe I will point out some names over him. But to be fair, on Winter, I think he played pretty well. I think this team initially started really well. It had a bit of a crumble. I think the fact that is a closer left, I still feel like even though Isma has improved compared to the beginning of spring, I think it's not the same. I think Closer offered a lot towards mid-late game. I think his team fight knowledge, I'm not sure exactly how it is in terms of calling, but I know for sure Closer is a really big caller later on. He has a really big proficiency around the details around team fights, and I think this could have a bit of impact, but I agree with Peter, this is not enough. You know, if a team wants to play for you, if Lot wants to be that carry, he needs to improve his team fights. I remember that I think it was his Jax and the Nar game particularly, those two, I do believe that he could have done a lot more. And yeah, I think this team overall, you have no June. You know that you're for sure going to play for top, right? So we just need more, you know. We need more firepower. I think on that series versus Fnatic, I actually think Jack has played pretty well across the 4 games, to be fair. But I think it's not enough, you know. You need to have more reliability on Lot if you want to play for him, because I know that Noah and June on those games, if I remember correctly, they were pretty behind across all the laning phases. So if you're putting resources, if you're putting attention into Lot, you definitely need this guy to perform when it matters. And I think his competition is high, like Peter was saying, right? You have BB, you have Mirwin even, you have Kana, yeah, sure, Oscar to some extent, right? So it's not easy, you know. If this team wants to cement themselves as a true contender, I think it might be needing a bit more, you know. But I do believe that there's margin to progress, you know. I do believe that GX probably has this more higher skill ceiling at the moment than compared to Heretics, and transitioning to Heretics. L6 is actually a team that I really wanted to see succeed, because I saw a lot of these players I see, right? I played versus Kamiloo, I played versus Carlsen. I know how good they were. Kamiloo was a bit more of a surprise to me, like I was telling Peter before. I think no one expected like a Division 2 player to go all the way from Division 2 to LEC. And I think we all agree that it showed, it showed the difference of the level. His laning phase is definitely very bad. Kamiloo back then was always very proficient on his control mages. He was a pretty decent team fighter. On his silence peaks, he was not bad. But I think the level is just a lot different, right? And I think even though there's a slow amount of progress from winter compared to spring, and this is probably like a 1-year project thing, it's just not enough if you want to maybe push for more. If you keep on this, you're probably just going to keep being okay. We're going to be like a top 5, top 6 team, and maybe not even assured, because it always depends on BDS and vitality, correct?
Yeah.
So if GX wants to, not GX, sorry, if Heretics really wants to cement themselves as a solid top 6 team, the progress needs to be faster. Maybe they will keep on progressing fast enough. I do respect a lot the rookies for this, which is, I think this team, at least they show a really good group, and that's something that I respect a lot in them, and that's why I want to see them succeed. Every time it showed on camera, every time it showed these guys, they're always smiling. They seem really united, they really feel the game, they really want to succeed. And I'm not sure how it is behind the scenes, but from what I know from them, I'm pretty sure these kids are working and putting effort, which is something that sometimes lacks on more experienced players. So I really hope they perform. I really want to see them progress more into summer. If I see it now, hardly. I think maybe they will be a bit better, but I think everyone nowadays, they're just going to this game thinking, okay, we're going to be probably a bit more aware about Shio and Stent, the two guys that are kind of the core of this team. And then Flacket for sure is a big menace as well. But I think people are not really targeting much or caring much about Carlsen or Kamiloo, and that's always a big downgrade, I do believe that this series versus the last series was not that bad, but it's still not enough, Like if you want to do more, it's simply not enough. And I'm with Peter on that. On GX, for GX, for me it's a bit more weird, because I actually feel like that they've shown what they can do, right? I think they've shown to us how good they can be, but it's just this bit of inconsistency. I think especially, I think them deviating the attention into LoT makes a lot of sense, because we've all seen what Noah and June suffered on playoffs, on decisive games, how they can fall into pressure. So putting this more easy shoulder on them, I think it's smart, don't get me wrong. But I do believe that Noah, last year, they actually carried a lot of games for Fnatic, Like, he had these really pop-off in team fights. So if Noah is not the guy that is going to do it on this team, and Jack is the one that is doing it the most, then LoT has to step up, okay? And I think if LoT actually steps up, this team can be a big threat, because Jack and LoT can actually be key factors, I do believe that with Closer, the team was a bit more well-rounded, though. I'm going to say it. I think I'm going to give it to him. I did actually see progress on his side. I think he started really bad the spring. I think then the difference was totally visible. But I think later stages now, I don't think he's being an issue, He's being a bit more solid. He's definitely not being level of Shio, in my opinion, or even, of course, Razor, Kolalioya. But is not being the issue. I think LoT has to step up, and the Celtic Soldiers as well, for sure.
What I like about these three players, since Peter also set it up as sort of like looking forwards to like what can we expect from them after they had these rough playoff runs, I actually think it's an interesting three set of players, because I think it covers the gamut. Like, I'm just going to say, if you asked me, would I stick with these players, or are they decent players for their teams? I think actually for each of the three, I have a different answer. I can go from yes, maybe, and no. So I'll do it in reverse order. The no is obviously Kamiloo. Like, that's just one where like I don't even know what the point of this was. Look, it was clearly a massive gamble. Here's the area I'll offer an olive branch to Peter. I do agree. Here's the thing: if you're going to gamble on a rookie anyway, you should give them a proper chance, because you're gambling. Like, it's not a guaranteed thing anyway. By the way, any GM who thinks it is guaranteed, unless you literally do have a Caliste type player, you're just an idiot. Like, there's no such thing as a guarantee. Like, you can never know. As we've always seen, there is a big difference between the guy who actually can smurf on an ERL and then go to the LEC. Sometimes those guys are bottom half. Like, that just happens. The drop can be enormous. But I think if you look at the Kamiloo one, the problem is this is not just a gamble. This is an enormous gamble. You basically are gambling, like I said on past epissodes, Peter, that you're doing some Arsene Wenger getting the like fucking George Weah from like some African league. Like, you're going on some, like, I've got the craziest eye test ever. So if you take that player, here's the other reason you also don't just chuck him away after 2 splits. Because what was the point in the gamble? What the gamble had to work within 2 splits? What if it came out? Look, I don't think it will. That's why I'm saying no. But if you did this gamble, you have to go for the 3rd split, because if it ever got better then your gamble was worth it. Why would you, essentially, in this analogy, imagine you bought a lottery ticket, right? It wouldn't matter if someone was like, it's unlikely that'll win. Oh, I'll sell the lottery ticket for less of the value then. No, you bought the lottery ticket so that if it wins, you get the full payout. Similarly, you know when people do those bets, like years and years, 10 years ago when Leicester was leading the Premier League in that famous season where they won miraculously, there was some people had bets on them at like 5,000 to 1, and everyone was telling them, you should sell halfway through the season. It's like, you're never going to get another chance for a 5,000 to 1 to win, you idiot. If you sell that, you are just saying in life, I will never win big. Because even though you would have taken value, and yeah, it would suck if they'd lost on the last game, when are you ever going to have a 5,000 to 1 chance that could actually win in that scenario? That's right, Kamiloo. You may as well just fucking stick with him. And lastly, I'll just throw this out there, just because I understand how sports works, whereas fans don't always. The ultimate nightmare if you were Heretics is this. Look, I don't think he's actually good enough. But I'll tell you what, imagine if you kicked him out and then another team, like, benched someone and took him, and then you got to like loosen the jar and then they popped it. You'd look like the biggest dickhead of all time. You'd look like the guy who sold right before the end when they could have won. Like, you would just be a fool, I'm afraid. So I'm with you. Even though I would say no, you're already in, as we say in England, in for a penny, in for a pound on this one, mate. You've already got in on that one. Now, if we go, there may be, unsurprisingly, his lot. I do think he's been very up and down. This has been a very like Jekyll and Hyde player for me. He's either at times he's looked good, by the way. Sometimes he's looked good against some of the better top laners. Sometimes he's looked dreadful though. And one of the problems I feel with this player, I'll actually be interested after I do this little spiel to see if you guys have some thoughts on this, is I actually wonder in their team if he's on the right team. Because when I look at him, mate, it feels like what they do is they go, now, we've got Noah and John here, so be a good boy and play that weak side. He's like, okay, boss, lock in the now. Like, he does that. Then they win a game, and then it feels like Yoto goes, all right, you've earned your good boy points, here's your carry pick. And the carry pick's always the fucking trash ass game. When he gets, and by the way, you can look at the champions he plays, he clearly wants to play like the Gwens and the Renekton's of the world. The problem is those are the games that fucking die on their arse. So the problem there is, that's why I'll say for him a maybe. I don't say no. I actually think also, by the way, you have to consider it's GX. It's not like fucking, that's not Fnatic. They don't have the pick of everyone. I think when you're working with like more of a limited, this isn't a for someone who's in year 1, this actually is some promise. The Kamiloo one, that, like you said, the copium there was like, he's better than the last split. It's like, yeah, well, you've just done a little semantic trick there. He was fucking terrible last split, wasn't he? Like, so ignore that. The lot one's fine. Now, the problem obviously he has there is, I don't know what they can change in their squad. Like I say, I think their squad is maybe a mismatch. I would maybe have, the joke is, he should probably play for like a Heretics type team. Maybe that would be the better squad for him, where they will play to his side and they can get the captain, they'll have to go even bot lane. The problem in this team is, on paper, you have to play to the no jump bot lane, because why else did we sign them? That's why we basically brought these guys to the team. And then the last one, unsurprisingly, the yes is obviously going to be with fucking Carlsen, isn't it? Because first of all, I think even in both splits, he's had his games where he looked really good, actually. And also, he's had the odd game against top teams where he's also performed. Like, I actually do think it's funny that him and Nak actually in some ways are like the two players where it doesn't matter if their team loses, they do look like a bright spot. You can see moments where it's like, I can see why they picked this guy. The obvious problem is, I've just said a player that's nose on this fucking guy's team and the other solo lanes. That's a problem right there. Yeah. Like, I don't really know how you're going to win that one. Also, by the way, as a random detail, if you just go and look at the teams on the GX one that they even beat, they basically beat the teams with the slightly weaker solo lane combos. I don't think that's a coincidence. And every team that has like a god bot lane, you just fucking put these guys in the dumpster. So that's just the way their team's set up. The problem you have on the Heretics side is, I actually genuinely, this is why in the big picture, if I'm Heretics, I wouldn't kick Kamiloo. But here's why if I'm Thorin and I could come in tomorrow, like, you know, those people who get brought in, Peter, like disaster CEOs or whatever, where a company's dying, you bring a guy in to do all the cuts. Here's why, for the sake of Carlsen, I would cut fucking Kamiloo. Because, bro, mid lane's all they're missing. If you actually put a mid laner in there that had some promise, that team could fucking cook, mate. Like, I've seen them this close to winning series. I think the other players are all actually pretty good. In fact, some of them are really good, by the way. She was fucking awesome. So I think if you look at, I am with you. By the way, I would never give up on Carlsen, especially with your Heretics. Like, that's actually, you might have even actually slightly gotten lucky getting a player like that. And the fact that the rest of the squad fits together. The Kamiloo one is tough, but again, you made your own bet on that one. You've just got to just tank it. And by the way, you could also even argue, if the same problems happen in summer, but the other players play well, then you know who to replace. It's problem solved. Why not still just give this a chance to see how the rest of them do? And if people want to be carries elsewhere, give Carlsen his carry games then. Okay, let's see what Sten wants to do on the map. So let's give these guys their tools, and then we'll see if Kamiloo can make it. But I have to say, the others I'm a bit more questionable. I don't mind the lot one, though. What do you think on that, though, on the GX one, though? Like, because I do feel like a classic problem that people do miss. This is definitely the case with coaches, but I think with certain players is also depends if you get to the right squad that sees the game the way you want to play the game. Like, if you think about someone like BDS, mate, if this guy had been on a past BDS in Adam's spot, I bet Striker would have set him up for loads of carry games. He'd probably be loving life. Any pushback? Anyone want to come in on that? No?
Oh,
we don't have to.
Either.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to go first? As the guest?
I can go. I can go.
Go for it.
I mean, I agree with you. It's what I was saying, right? I actually think that if this team with GX actually had the jungler sort of like Shio, right? Which is very good at unlocking his laners, right? Back then when it was on BDS, I remember this guy was so good at unlocking Adam. I mean, Adam sometimes even unlocked himself, of course.
Sure.
Right? But this guy was really good at unlocking his solo lanes, his Nuke, Shio. So I actually think that Lot out of the three is the one that have shown like not its peak, but that he can be on the peak, you know, that he can be competing with the others, you know. Whereas the other two, maybe it's a bit more questionable. I do believe that Carlsen maybe so far has shown a bit more, like Thorin said. And then Kamiloo, it's still hard bet, you know. I think Kamiloo still has a long margin to go if he really wants to prove his point and be on LEC as a fellow contender. But Lot, I do believe so. I'm not sure how it is in the market of ERLs currently, how the equals 50 is up, but I do believe that Lot, if he has somehow a similar or a better summer, once again, I actually think Lot going to other teams could be like a big priority, because I think the market out there on the EU for tops, there's not that many super good tops, right? And let's see, of course, we have BB, we have Mirwin, we have Karna, the ones we've said. But outside of those like top three, on ERLs, it's not that much of a contender, I feel, personally. So I do believe that Lot could cement himself like as a top contender for many teams, you know, on tryouts. So yeah, I do believe that if he's paired with the jungler more sort of like Shio, a type of Razork, I think he will be very, very much better. And then, yeah, I think if he has probably like a core that maybe I'm not sure how it is in communication with Noah and June, right? But I think if he has a clear communication guidance on mid-late game with the support and jungle, I think this guy can potentially cement himself as a top 3 tops in a year for sure.
Yeah. I mean, for Lot, what I would say for Lot is, okay, let's put aside his Rumble games, right? Rumble, he's like really cracked on Rumble, right? He's not quite O1 level on Rumble, but he's like very close to like, I mean, like his Rumble and Canada's Rumble are very, very, very similar. Like he's really, really good on Rumble. But on his other champions, yeah, it falls off. But the fact that he has a Rumble that he can play at this level and not just like some cheese pick like Garen that nobody's, you know, the only Garen you're scrimming against is BDS, right? Like or Rogue, but you know, like the Adam era, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like everyone is playing Rumble and everyone is playing into Rumble, and the fact you can still play Rumble at that level is a mark in Lot's favor. So I would say that for him, I kind of see what you mean for the maybe. I have questions about his team fighting. I have questions about his flanking. I don't know how you even train that on a team like GX though, right? Do you just go for a week of scrims and have him calling his flanks or things like this, right? Because the big reason he's so good on Rumble is he can be late to a fight, right? Because Rumble has big burst damage when he comes into a fight, and even if you fuck up your like flank angle, you can always equalize there and then you're fine, right? Like so this is why he's so good on Rumble, right? Because his laning phase is good, his side laning is good, his side laning is above average, but he can. Rumble gives you more leeway than any other champion in fights, right? And maybe there's other champions which GX can either draft for him like this, or that, you know, they need to put him in scrims in a position where he's shot calling more so that he can fuck up in scrims and like learn it, right? Because this is a gap. And you know, the one person that the player that Lot reminds me of is like an early career I literally had his name.
Tell us the team he played for. Give me a chance, for fuck's sake.
Team Liquid 2021.
Top player. Wait a second. Alfari,
that's it. I literally had his name. I was like, okay. But that's who he reminds me of. He reminds me of Alfari in his first couple of years, right? When he was coming into the league, when he was on Misfits and things like this, where he was like a god tier like laner. Like this guy was insane on laning, but had issues in team fighting, and it was never fixed. Like even towards the end of his career, he still struggled in team fighting. He still he was still getting these absurd leads, but they were never able to transfer those leads into wins, right? And this is like you maybe compare his career trajectory to somebody like Chachi, right? Who actually developed that really, really, really at a high level in his career. And I think this is like Lot at some point, he again, don't kick him, right? Like this guy's more than good enough to play in LEC, right? But at some point, to avoid going down the Alfari path, he needs to be able to develop that team fighting, and that either comes through like shot calling responsibility, or it comes through like change adjustments in champion pool or things like this, right? So I think Lot is maybe slightly separate from the others, because he's had longer to kind of develop and build his fundamentals. For Carlsen, I think Carlsen is in a difficult situation. Firstly, his laning phase is not LEC level right now. His team fighting is. He's really, really good at team fighting, but his laning phase is too bad. He needs to improve it. He has improved it. He needs to improve it more, right? Like it's the reality. He has a hard job because if he was playing with like say a Nisqy or something, this guy would be roaming into his lane, giving him reassurances. In the mid game when he doesn't know whether to side lane, that veteran guy would be calling for him. Having both of your solo laners be mega rookies is really, really difficult.
Yeah, if people don't know, he's only 19. He's quite young.
Yeah, and I mean, like in academy, he's either played with like at gutter tier like ERLs or with Certus, right? Who is obviously Certus shot calling a ton, or Zwairu, who's obviously also shot calling a ton, right? So he hasn't needed to be the primary shot caller. So it's hard. It's hard to develop your side lane shot calling when you have another mega rookie in the other solo lane, right? Normally you need. It's normally better for development if you have one veteran and one rookie, right? Heretics aren't going to make any changes, obviously, because they're in for it. But maybe even if they wanted to all in on Kamiloo, maybe Carlsen should have sat in academy for another year. I don't know, right? Maybe he signed Oda one day or something.
Or he could have gone to GX with his old coach. He could have had that too.
Oh, true.
Could have done that angle, right?
Actually, that would have maybe been a better. So I'm willing to give him a little bit of leeway on that. His team fighting has gotten a lot better. I know that's because he's playing on a team with Flacken and Sheer, who it's so easy to team fight when Flacken is your AD carry. Flacken is like micro calling like everything. Maybe not like mana bars, but like he's giving you structure. But I think one thing that Carlsen could do, I'm very skeptical of Korean boot camps, but Carlsen is the one player in the LEC who you say to me, should this guy take a Korean boot camp? Like maybe he should just go to Korea and just
to practice raw laning, basically.
Yeah, just practice his raw laning, or go to China if you want. But I think the visa's a bit harder. But like go and sit in an Asian server for a month and like work on your laning, right? And then you're going to be fine coming into summer, in my opinion. We'll see. For Kamiloo, okay, so you mentioned the George Weah thing. I've got a really fringe point, okay, which is we're going to talk about Nigerian strikers, okay? So for people that don't follow football that well, the thing that you may think about is like Victor Osimhen. Okay, so Victor Osimhen, Nigerian striker, really, really, really good player. Plays in Turkey now, but really could have had the world was his oyster last off season, but his agent really fucked up in like the absolute worst way you could fuck up. Okay, so Victor Osimhen is like the person that I think Heretics thought that they were going to sign, but actually they signed Ian Acho, and Ian Acho is like a mid-tier Nigerian striker, not bad. But basically, like, was never the top dog in Nigeria, right? Osimhen was like the top dog, and Iheanacho was like the number 2 dog. So sorry, that's really fringe if you're not like a big football fan. But why am I saying this? It's because at the time where these guys were coming up, when Kamiloo was in LFL2, there was another mid laner who was in LFL2, who people thought should have been promoted to LEC, which is Omon, who is now on KC, right? He's in EU.
BK Rock.
BK Rogue, yeah. Sorry, not Casey. But he's going to be at EU Masters, and this guy was a guy who he's only like 18 months, I think, older than Kamiloo. But he was like if you were going to say who is the guy who if you're going to promote for LFL2, and I don't think I wouldn't have flipped it on Omon either. But if I was going to flip it on an LFL2 mid laner, Omon is more well-rounded, had been at EU Masters before in some of the minor ERLs before he went to LFL2. But he was the guy who like looked better and more complete, and he's not even that much older, right? So they haven't even flipped it on George Weah or yeah, or Osimhen. They flipped it on Iheanacho, right? Like they flipped it on a guy who is like not even like the top of the top, because they see some hidden potential that maybe other people haven't seen. And yeah, I mean, you can't pull the plug on it now, right? Like, I mean, they are now stuck where maybe if they okay, so Nisqy has had a bit of a bad split and hasn't played mid lane for a bit, right? But let's say they had Prime Nisqy, or they had like Vitio, or
Which, by the way, in past years, that would be a move. Like I say, you would bring a Nisqy and Abadag and just chuck him in for summer, wouldn't you? Yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, but there is no way that they could justify it now, right? Because the problem is Kamiloo started at such a low point. He's improved so much that they're now backed into a corner, and maybe there's a situation where they can compete for Worlds if like Nisqy is on that team, right? Because they like Stend has developed. Like, I was a huge fan of Stend, but I didn't think Stend was going to be this good. Like, I mean, come on, like nobody gets to claim that kind of credit, right? But they've clearly got like AD carry support, jungle who are good enough to go to Worlds. And like, if you had the option to bring somebody else in, you would swap the mid lane, but you can't swap the mid lane. Like, there is no way. Like, if you swap Kamiloo out now, you maybe improve your chances of going to Worlds from like 0.1% to like 5%, 10%, but no rookie is ever signing for you ever again, right? Like, no rookie. So they back themselves into a corner. They can't really swap anyone out. That probably means that summer is a write-off, but they have good chances to improve going into next year and to make those decisions. So I agree with you. I think like if we were playing football manager or like League of Legends manager or whatever it is, maybe you bring in the guy, you go and put him back in academy for one split. But I think Heretics can't do that. So that's the unfortunate point, right? And yeah, we wait to see how those guys progress into summer. But it's really clear. The good thing is they've played in playoff series and they've been targeted and exposed, right? Whereas like other people like Knack or Paris haven't had that chance, right? So, you know, on the one hand, it's a negative point, it's a bad point. You kind of cost your team the series. But at least now you know it's been drawn in a line, right? Whereas Paris and Knack have to sit there being like, oh, you know, I could have made it. Well, no, you couldn't have made it. They would have fucked you over too. But you don't know how they would have fucked you over, right? And that's
yeah, also, this isn't Football Manager. You can't do all those tricks like reduce everyone's salary to nothing, but then give them bonus for goals so that everyone scores. Sadly, these things don't exist. You have to actually be a real coach and develop people who care about humans and stuff, Peter, all that boring shit. Anyway, my bad point is actually going to be one where, since we've already covered the GX Fnatic one, it was going to be like that, but I can flip it to be more abstract. So since we've already talked about GX, we've even talked about the GX Fnatic series, what I would say is this. Bearing in mind, Fnatic was the fourth best team this split. Look, already we're getting into like, how good is it? Is the team actually as good as its last result? Is it some of its parts? Is it outplay? Because obviously in the regular season they weren't the fourth best team, but they are the fourth best team by result. And even though that might make this point even more extreme, look at the gap between fourth best and anyone else in the league. Like, I know the Fnatic's probably the most extreme one because they've got such insane hands players and even like big names that they would probably gap anyone anyway. But like, they didn't even look like they needed to fucking try in that GX series. That was a joke. Like, that's why they all got to like for one day feel good before they got their head smashed in by KC. You look at the regular split, even when they played like, oh, they're throwing, teams couldn't catch the throw. They just couldn't catch the throw against Fnatic. Like, the problem I basically have is, LEC's now dope when you talk about the top four teams. Really interesting. Like, who can win? That's really interesting. The back and forth. But the problem is, after the top four, there isn't really upset potential for me. Like, even if I'd have said, I don't know, maybe a Koi could have had more chance, they still would have won. They still would have beaten any other opponent outside the top four. So I feel like the gap between fourth and everyone else is enormous now. It feels like, I mean, we've just been talking here, even if you give compliments to GX, if you put them again, let's do it tomorrow, put them against Fnatic again, they just get wrecked again. I very much doubt they'll ever win that series. So in a BO5, I have a hard time seeing any team beat any of the top four at this point. What do you think, DeadShadow? What is the gap like for you?
I fully agree with you. I think there's a very cemented top four. I think what differs this team from the rest, for sure there's a lot of individual skill, right? I think that's clear. But I think it's overall the structure, you know? Like these top four teams, all of them are very proficient or very good at one or two things, you know? And all of the rest, you can say, I mean, yeah, what is Vitality good at, you know? What is Celtics good at? What is Giants good at? They do have their own traits, don't get me wrong, but it's just, the structure behind these four is just way above everyone else, And to be fair, if you told me at the beginning of spring, oh, Heretics and Giants will be the top 5, top 6, I will say no, I will say maybe BDS will be there, maybe Vitality will be there. So I did get a bit surprised, which is good. I do believe that at least if there's a bit of a disparity between the top 4 and the rest, at least let it be that the other top 6 are fighting between themselves,
Right.
But at least what I do enjoy about the current LEC is that compared to previous years, you do feel like that any of these top 4 teams, or maybe there's a few chances here and there for more for others than for others, but any of these top 4 teams can bring it all, Any of these top 4 can actually win it. And until now, you've seen, okay, yeah, there's G2, maybe there's Fnatic, and that's it, So,
by the way, that's one thing I'll just throw out there as well. Everyone now does that thing of like, what did you guys believe in Fnatic? None of you G2 fans were on Reddit or Twitter for the last fucking 3 months, mate. We never saw you. You all pretend now you always believe. I always knew that. You didn't. You didn't. And by the way, none of you bet on those games because I can tell you, you can imagine the odds were always in favour of the fucking team against G2. Like you're all just frauds. You all pretend you did that. Nobody thought you. In fact, G2 fans themselves were sort of hating on Broken Blade and fucking Skew Morners. Yeah, of course. Come on. This is how fans are, mate. Keep going, sorry. Yes. Keep going.
But no, I agree. I think maybe G2, though, they might be cementing themselves as a T1 now, a typical T1. We can never count them out, They look like not as a Gen G, they not look like a Anwa, but then when it matters, they're there, They have the simple switch on caps, on BB, and these players they can play when it matters the most, Maybe compared to players like Humanoid and Razor, that, okay, we've seen these guys maybe not have the ability to flip the switch when they need to, or not as easily. And yeah, like I do agree that there's a big disparity between the top 4 and top 6. But personally, I do enjoy it more. I actually think that us having a really big top 4 is way better than us having a really big top 2 and everything else being like a mesh, Because I think until now, so far, I mean, the top 3, top 4 last year, sure, they're not that bad. Teams like BDS, they're not that bad. But I think that now, I think all of us could agree that I'm not unhappy to send any of these top 4 teams to an international event, And maybe that could be bad. Maybe it could be that, okay, maybe this top 4 is just low level. But personally, I don't think it is, Maybe at the beginning of the year, I could be looking at this year as, okay, LEC is going to go a bit down. It's the ERL cycle, a lot of rookies are coming to the ERL. It's going to take a while for them to develop. G2 is making changes, and it's jungle support. It's a very big change. KC will probably take their time to cement themselves. But no, I think we're all wrong, maybe G2 started a bit iffier. They're looking very sharp now. KC started very sharp, way sharper than everyone expected. Everyone was expecting a top 5, top 6 for them, even lower for others. Mm-hmm. So I actually think that any of these top 4 teams, of course, maybe it will never be easy versus a Gen G, a TS, on anyone's Legends. But I think these top 4 teams can actually make a good results on international events. And that's, for me, way better than just depending on G2 and Fnatic every year and knowing that, okay, G2 is just going to take it. Let's just see who can fight it for the second place,
No, I think that's fair. Actually, I didn't really have a flame point last point, but Thorin, I think you set me up for a perfect flame point here, which is like, I don't blame Heretics for like not being able to compete with these teams. You know who I blame? I blame fucking Vitality and BDS.
Yeah,
like they're the ones who are supposed to be here competing with these teams. True. They're sitting fucking 7th and 8th. Heretics, Giants are like reasonably low resourced. They have to kind of flip it. I had them as like being an outside threat. Heretics, obviously, development project. Long-term development project. They're ahead of schedule, right? So it puts their flaws up for analysis a lot earlier than maybe they want them to be revealed, right? But yeah, BDS should be here. BDS and Vitality are the teams who should be like being there in the lower bracket, making KC and Fnatic are really afraid of losing their first round. But I'm pretty sure that Fnatic and KC came into this 5-6 and just like they're not even thinking about those teams. This is what makes the Fnatic loss even worse because they had the whole week to.
They must have been thinking about KC. Come on,
they're not prepping for Heretics, right? And maybe they're doing like a minimal prep for.
By the way, same thing for KC. Like KC looked like they weren't even tried in that fucking series. They knew there was good. That's why when everyone was going, wow, Heretics got a game, but Fnatic didn't. Yeah, because they actually gave a fuck about Fnatic. They actually were caring about that one. The other one was like they were going to win anyway. Come on.
So to me, I think we should in theory have a competitive league with like a top 4
Yeah.
and then maybe a 5 to 7 who can compete. But the only one that competed was the 7th one, right? Like the
Yes.
GX, because of Vitality and BDS kind of like shooting themselves in the foot over and over again, right? And like hopefully those teams will be better in summer. Like it seems like
Yes.
maybe we'll talk about Vitality later, but BDS are doing open tryouts, right? They've already announced they're going to replace their jungler. They've even announced they may be replacing so they're trialing top AD carry and jungle, and jungle's already like jungle decided not to compete for his spot. He's gone to, I think, Supermassive one.
Yes,
He's gone to touch team, right? But basically, like, a top, fair enough. Fair enough to admit that you made a mistake 6 months in. But like the AD carry one is fucking crazy to me. Like, I mean,
That almost sounds like he wants to leave or something. Like, surely, why would you ever bench that player? It's too good.
Yeah, maybe, but like, Vitality are making changes, BDS are making changes, and if we want to competitively hold those guys accountable in summer, right?
No,
I'm not gonna, even if Heretics are shit in summer, like, sorry, if Heretics make top 6 again and they're not able to compete, I think they'll be better in summer. But let's say worst case scenario, they stalled all the development of all their players stalls, but they're still top 6 and they still get crushed in the first round like they did this time. I'm not blaming Heretics. Right? I'm blaming like Vitality and BDS because you guys have like double the budget, right? And you're further on in the cycle of your development of your roster, right? So those are the guys who I'm holding accountable. But yeah, it's good to have a top 4. I mean, it sounds crazy to have a top 4 after what I saw on Monday, right? But it is a top 4 at least in regular season. And Mickey, I'm reminded of Mickey's tweet, which is like the funniest tweet that I've read from any player, which is already celebrating regular season summer 2025 champion.
It's a banger. The problem there is, right, that's him still being the G2 player. That's fire. If you're actually a Fnatic player and you tweet that, though, it's kind of a bit depressing, mate. You know what I mean? That's funny in G2 because you would come back and win. That's like you just admitting, like, yeah, we are just shit in playoffs, aren't we? It's true. It's true.
I mean, I think Mickey can tweet it. I don't think Upset
sure.
Oscar can get away with tweeting that, but it's still one of the funniest tweets that I've seen.
Oh, it's a banger. No, by the way, you are right as well. Technically, it is those two teams to blame, not GX and fucking Heretics. Like, on paper, Vitality had a high ceiling, and BDS's roster on paper was supposed to be really good. They should actually have been like 4th or 5th themselves, so I agree. They did definitely fucked up, but that in itself highlights the fact that the gap's ridiculous. Like, look at all these other teams. They're all just a mess. Yeah. Okay, well, speaking of players who maybe need to change their jersey, you can change your jersey, aka clothing, and you can actually get LFN merch. That's right, Last Free Nation actually has its own merchandise now, so you can go to lastfreenation.shop and you can purchase new merchandise. You can get t-shirts, joggers, mats, mugs, loads of stuff. It's shipped worldwide with free shipping to the United States on all orders $60 or more. A few of the items they have like a founder's shirt, which is like a t-shirt with like the logo on, which is going to have like a unique number on the arm, and there'll only be a certain number of those made, and then they'll stop selling them at one point to make it like a limited edition drop or whatever. They got these joggers that are actually really comfortable. They're premium cuffed joggers, whatever that means, but they actually feel awesome. They have like LFN logo on the leg. They have the desk mat, like I say, they have a mug, keycap, chain for people who want to fidget with stuff. They actually also, I'll tell you one thing that's baller, if you ever watch on the Culture Channel, when we do that film review series where we like review The Godfather and stuff, they actually have those amazing artworks that guy Antantalis made, where he took like posters of characters from the movies and made me and Richard Lewis and Monty into those people. Those look really, really good. Like they sent me some of those. I'll put some of those on my walls, unironically, and I'm not even a big esports merch, but so thank you to everyone, because people have been asking for ages. If you want to support Last Free Nation, this is a great way to do it. lastfreenation.shop. As I said, they ship free to the USA on orders over $60, and they actually in theory ship worldwide, so you can get this stuff wherever you are. Because there was actually one guy on like a past thing who told me something like, they don't ship with a different product. It was like, they can't ship to where I am, and I was like, where are you? I think he was in like the Faroe Islands or something. Like, what the fuck? Okay, mate, fair enough. I didn't even know anyone had computers in. That's the joke, obviously. Anyway, let's go now to the ugly point. So, what is your ugly point, DeadShadow? What's ugly right now?
Alright, let's go back to what we were speaking earlier. Let's talk about Fnatic.
Of course.
Sorry to all the Fnatic fans. But yeah, speaking seriously now. I want to speak a bit about Fnatic, a bit more in a broad way. We were focusing a lot on the series, right, these past matches, but let's talk about Fnatic more in a general way. And for me, it's starting to be concerning, It's been so many splits now, that's year after year, splits after splits. roster after roster. So I don't know how many coaches, how many players, but you guys said how many, and it's just failing, you know. And it's clear that fans are getting frustrated. I think I don't recall when it was the last time Fnatic lost that I saw so much frustration from fans on Twitter. Everyone was really, really mad. So, and I can understand, you know. I don't want to speak for Fnatic as a whole, but I'm not sure how they are fully performing on all the modalities. But for example, it's been long that we've had the Fnatic ad in Counter Strike, for example, right? The top 1, top 2 team with JW, Flush, Creams. The Fnatic Rainbow team, I think, has not been performing so well. I think the only that is making sure they're accountable is like the Valorant team. I think it's like top 1,
they're
top
usually
2.
pretty good, yeah.
Yeah. So at least that's that. But I don't know, like Fnatic should be a team that is cementing themselves as a true contender. And I think it started to be like a candle that it was lighted up here and now it's like burning all the wax down and the wax is like not remaining out, you know, like there's going to be no more wax to burn. And I think that's cementing themselves as not like anymore as a top 1 team to some extent. And yeah, this roster for me, it's really surprising that after 2 splits, they didn't even reach a final. You know, and at the beginning of the year, you will look at the teams. People were even saying that LEC will look a bit weaker. You know, GT is weaker. KC, Koi, sure they're okay, but they're not on the same level. Vitality, BTS, and everyone just gave it away to Fnatic, right?
Yeah.
I was always a bit skeptical because let's be real, we've seen this before. We've seen these super teams before. We've seen teams like 5 big names, just mash them together. It's gonna work, you know. Like just let them be. They're gonna be the best in their positions. And how many times have we seen that fail, right?
Sure.
So, but yeah, I did see that with this triple splits, with the 9 BO1s, I will be very surprised if in 2 splits, if in winter and spring, Fnatic won't reach at least a final. And somehow on this spring, they managed to make it worse, you know? And now we stop to ourselves, we think, what's next? You know, it's not even like, okay, we get a 4th place on spring and we live on a not so negative note. No, you just literally got smashed by KC3-0. You seemed like headless chickens. You didn't look like you were creative at all. You have some of the best players in each role of the league, and it just looked like a full rookie team. You know, like what's the plan? Because I'm actually concerned now that will this Fnatic even make it towards? Like I'm actually concerned.
It's possible they might not,
because,
yeah.
Not now. If they play like this in summer, then they don't make it through.
Exactly, and when's been the last time that Fnatic didn't make it to Worlds, right? I think it was 2017 or 16.
16, I think, yeah.
It was Gamsu. It was like Gamsu.
Yeah, it was 2016.
Yeah.
Spirit.
Spirit,
So,
yes.
I'm not sure what's the next step for Fnatic. I think with all the tweets that we've referred to, it also shows that things internally are not looking too good. If I'm not wrong, I think Grebs even mentioned that Fnatic has been requesting a performance coach all the way till November or December when this project started, and it's still yet to come, you know. So it's surprising, you know. It's a team that should be cementing themselves as a OG, you know. It's should be even higher glory than a G2, right? It's the ghost of Europe, right? And year after year, it just feels like they are slowly losing their fire. They're slowly just losing. Fans are probably either getting frustrated or going into other prospect orgs like Koi or KC. And then you have like the last time you've won the championship was I think 2018, the Fnatic that made it to Worlds
The
Finals.
joke is it was when it wasn't even called LEC. It was
Exactly.
ULCS.
So it was ULCS.
That's how long ago it was.
It's been 7 splits. I'm not really sure if it's fair to throw shit at Razork and Humanoid on the top side. I will say that I do agree that maybe it has shown not to be leaning towards success to some extent, but at the same time, I'm with you guys. Like, what will we change them up with? You know, what could we change? You know, will it be something that will give us results immediately? Will it be something that will maybe we will bet on some ERL talents 1 or 2, and maybe towards the future, you know, a 1-year project at the end of the summer split, we will be a Worlds contender to some extent. I do believe that Fnatic had a really big blunder by seizing their operations on the academy team. I think that's something really big that teams like KC has now 3 teams. They have the Division 2 team that has huge talents. They have the LFL team and they have the main team, right? And then all the other teams, they have academies, you know? And for me, G2, at least they have the G2 bucks, right? They have the image. They can sell, okay, like
True.
we can pay for any player. They can come for us because we are G2. They will come on a cheaper price. But Fnatic, I'm not sure anymore. You know, they used to have it to
Sure.
some extent. Like everyone wanted to go to Fnatic, but nowadays, is it the same? You know, like do people really want to go for Fnatic? They see these guys just losing with super rosters. Internally, a lot of things are coming out to public. Like it's a disaster inside. And it just looks like things are not clicking, you know. And at this point, what is it? Is it the player? Is it the duo of the players? Is it internally things are not working well? But we don't know. The things that we know is that the results are not coming, fans are getting frustrated, and as an European that loves Fnatic, I think all of us love Fnatic, right? It's very sad to see, you know. It's not a team that, to some extent, as well, Peter.
Sure.
But yeah,
I know.
yeah, it's just surprising for me because I think it's starting to be that feeling that I'm gonna start 2026 as a feeling that okay, like will Fnatic even have a chance to win anymore, or is like KC and G2 just tired? You know, are they like an underdog at the moment? Like they used to be a 50-50 rival, right? And right now, I'm starting to lose that fire. You know, I'm not sure about you guys, but
So, but to ask the question I was going to ask earlier, would you blow it up before summer, or do you give them one more shot? Because
that's
you
a big
said that it's
question.
unlikely they make worlds, right, with their current
Mhm.
roster. So.
That's a big question because what makes me think that maybe Fnatic could have as an advantage compared to G2, KC, or Koi that are going to the internationals is exactly what we said earlier about the length of the splits, right? The fact that, okay, the top two will go to the double internationals, right? World Cup and MSI. So maybe those guys will not have a proper time to rest, you know? They will not have a proper time to prepare for summer. But at the same time, does the B1s even matter at this point? You know, do we even care about if they come to B1s a bit like, for example, KC when they finished first stand, right? You saw that their first B1s they were not super clear. Some of the drafts were even referring to meta that they played on the first stand, not really adapted. So it clearly showed that they did not have a proper break. So does it even matter that Fnatic will have this huge advantage or somehow advantage of extra time to rest and prepare for the splits? Personally, I don't feel so. So now, will I burn it all? That's a tricky question because I feel like in ERLs we have names that could be good. You have very good junglers like Relech. You have good names like Omon. Even players a bit more underground like Gyu on Yike, right? So there's names. The thing is, will these names give us better results immediately on a one split before Worlds? That's what I'm not sure, you know. So personally, I think the best thing to do is they need to try to solve things internally. They need to sit down, talk, see what's happening, what they can do, because I still feel like these players could be top. You know, this team could still be a top team. They could still be at least a top 3 going for Worlds. These guys know the game more than all the others. They have more experience than all the others. It's not their first loss. It's not the first slap that these players take, right? These players are used to heartbreaks. These players are used to losing. Will they be a strong contender for summer if they keep the roster? I personally think top 1, I will be very surprised. So I don't think so. I don't think Fnatic has many chances of going to summer and winning it all. But I do believe that if they keep the same roster and they maybe get the performance coach, they seem to click well. They use this rest before summer to rest a bit and prepare the things with time, with structure. Maybe they can have a bit of somehow a lucky run and be top 3. But if that's good for them, I'm not sure, you know, because I don't think as a Fnatic fan, you are very contented with, okay, let's just play for the last playoffs, the last world spot, right? You don't want that. And even as a Fnatic player, so it's hard to say. Like, I think they have really the big decision on their hands. I would personally say it's very late now to make a decision before summer and worlds. I think even if you somehow manage to find a golden piece, will you have even time to make the things click, you know, before the others? So personally, I don't think so. But yeah, at the same time, it's a big risk to go with the same core. I will say it.
I mean, the the reason I ask is because I see BDS are doing their tryouts, right? So let's say that they BDS decide they want main to Tracing, right? Like, I mean, I think those are the two top laners that people would generally think are the best ERL top laners. Maybe people can debate me, but let's say that you want, let's say main to it becomes the guy that you want to promote into your top lane, right? If BDS are going now, you're not going to get a shot at him, right? Because BDS are going to sign him in long term, right? Or let's say Tracer, right? In from Lost Heretics, right? So the issue here is, if they wait too long, maybe they don't have an option. If they had an ERL, basically the advantage that having an ERL roster gives you is it gives you somewhere to store talent that you don't want to promote immediately, right? Let's say this Carlsen experiment doesn't work out, right? Heretics have Tracer like stored in the backup tank. They can promote him, or they can promote Sagittor. I think is a bit. I mean, he still has some development, right? To go through until he's there, but like. But this is the problem Fnatic have. They have to pick their moment to go. They have to time it perfectly because they don't have an academy team, which is not good for me. And the whole reason I mentioned the Humanoid Oscar stuff earlier is because it should be clear you can take a gamble on people that are chokers or suffer under pressure, right? But you cannot do that in that kind of an environment without a performance coach. Right? Maybe on some rosters, performance coaches aren't necessary, right? Maybe if you are on, I don't know the personality of the people on G2, but maybe if you're on G2 or if you're on Koi, right? Like maybe if you're on Koi, you don't need a performance coach because all of those guys are like kind of psychopaths, right? Like in terms of how they, they're willing to trash talk G2 2-1 down in a series just because they won a game, and to the point where Skewman is so triggered that in the post-game interview he's like, oh, they won one game and then they're trash talking us. How dare they trash talk us? It was so funny that interview because they've won, right? They've gone to MSI and like all you're talking about is the fact that the Koi players are trash talking you. But to me, that's the issue, right? Fnatic have to time it. And yeah, I think it's really difficult. But yeah, like if your roster is this roster, please, dear God, get a performance coach. Like, even if it's only for 2 months, because they've literally lost in playoffs through choking. I'm going to call it choking. I don't care what people say. That's an excuse, because regular season to playoffs, there's a difference. And like choking is the easiest way to determine it, but you know what I mean. Underperformance in playoffs, whether or not we're calling it choking or not. Get a performance coach, please.
By the way, that's the part I want to pick up on, because the real problem I have with this squad is it's like the ultimate version of what I said earlier about making the gamble on people like Kamiloo. It's like if you have like essentially what you believe is a strength, it just hasn't fully manifested. Well, then you don't want to throw it all away and just start over, or make it a Frankenstein squad and take this player out and put someone in, and then all of a sudden that player plays more stable, but he's not the same jungler, so now you've lost your whole identity. So I actually think they're in a really tough spot. Like in my opinion, you pretty much have to just run back this 5 again. And what you have to actually pray is that first of all, Grabs does find some different angle that makes it so that you aren't just smurfing regular season and then you fall apart. And one of those angles clearly could be sports psychs. If people don't know, or performance coach, whatever you want to call that role, if people don't know, that is literally what on Twitter and on my shows, he came on this show, Nightshare, the coach of the team for the last almost 2 years, was saying the whole time he was in that squad. He was never saying, and he had a worse roster, he was never saying, get me a different bot lane, all he said the whole time was just give me a performance coach. Like, because I imagine he had the exact same problem. If you ever saw those G2 Romain leaks, even in the splits G2 wins, there would be times where Fnatic was the one team beating them. It was even happening in a winter split here. They were the one team giving G2 the fucking business. That's why that was the team they were scared of, actually. It wasn't the others out there, etc. So if you look at that implies to me, and if you look at this team, I think it's the ultimate version of it. This is the ultimate team that it's all in their heads. It's not something in the game, because as we say, when you take that pressure out and they're in the regular season, people don't know, in the regular split, they lost the least amount of games. I know they lost more series, but they only lost 6 total individual games. And people's brains are like, what the fuck? No, they were all up. No, they weren't. The craziest thing about this team is, like, here's what's a problem. Normally, as a critique of a team like this, you say you're just a front runner. I'm not even sure they're fully a front runner, because they don't fucking close the game out. Like, what's stupid is, yes, they can get a crazy lead on everyone. I always say this, right, because people forget this. Both in winter and this time, both times they played G2, if you let me pause the time in the VOD, you'll think they win these games. All of them. All of the games. I can tell you, I can pause at a moment, and I'm not saying 3 minutes in when they get a first, but I mean, I can pause at like 17 minutes or 22, and you would think, oh, they win this game, look at them, they're up. So I'll even throw this out there, that even though on paper, when you look at their players, they should be maybe even the best team fighting team in the league. Mate, if you are getting that many leads, how are you not then with these players winning the team fights and winning the game? Because there's something fundamentally, and it has to be something psychological to me, because people like Razok just don't play this way in the regular split. People like Humanoid, we just said before, he actually does look like the second best mid laner in the regular split. It's just in this big series, where does it go? It just evaporates off the server like the second the game goes live or something crazy. And sadly, in a way, this one's worse than the past years, because one, last year I thought that the quality of the league was so much worse that like they were second by default. Like the joke is they were second because BDS fucked up with how they treated Adam or something like that. Like that's the real reason they were second. They weren't even that good a roster on paper. Like Oscar was fresh. Noah Jun was like took turns being good. It felt like on splits, you know. No one was ever that mega. The problem is this roster on paper, as you said earlier, bro, at the beginning of the year, people thought they won the offseason. Like this was the team, had all the betting odds. Everyone said, also the classic one, all the scrims in the offseason was supposed this was the demon team that was going to beat everyone. It's even implied, by the way, like I say, if you look at interviews, people do imply this team still godlike in scrims and they're still fucking insane. Like the real reason why it's hard there to be a grabs is like, but I'm in my practice environment, it's all working. What am I going to do? Tell them don't win these games? Like, oh, can you stop smashing that game that hard? I've always said to fans, they all think in a documentary, Peter, if you do some like weird tactic, like, we're going to like, don't ever go for a solo kill in lane and top lane. Like, yeah, that sounds like a genius idea if you win the split at the end, like some movie. It's actually stupid if it doesn't change anything. Like, if people smash the games in 15 minutes, what can you do? Sorry, that's sort of job done. We wanted to do it. The problem is, why can't you do it on stage is the question, which is why it's more of a Fnatic org thing for me. The question is, why as an org are you paying massive contracts like Humanoid, bringing in superstar coaches like Grabs, getting upsets? Why have you done all these other things correctly? But then what you've skipped on is the role that, even though it doesn't always heal people. It's like doctor. Not every doctor does the job right. But this particular role is one that magnifies other people's performances. This is the one that at the end potentially brings all this potential out of the team. And so I do think that's a bummer. I actually think that is really sad. And in some ways, the reason also this is worse, this is even worse than Winter, because in Winter they almost beat G2, then got rocked. Then they had a really good 5-game series against fucking KC. That looked actually excellent, especially when KC then won the league. This time you had actually a pretty good BO5 against G2 until you lost, and then the lower bracket you just got 3-zipped. You just got and you're out. And even worse, because you played GX, we all know you're not shit. Like, that's when there's no pressure. You are really good. But in some ways, this is more torture, I think. And then to throw in, like, I'll just point this out, because I always said this about Dardo. I always said, the real reason they critiqued him, mate, had nothing to do with what the team looked at. It's just that they lost. It's just that fans expected you to win, because, like you say, DeadShadow, you're Fnatic. You're supposed to always find your way back. You're supposed to be one of these squads. If you think of this list of names, Dardo did all this. He gave you Wonder. By the way, when Wonder was still considered like fucking amazing, he gave you Mickey X. When G2 were beating you, if I said, do you want Mickey X on your team? You'd go, yeah, but it's not possible. He gave you that guy. Reckless. You might all, look, you didn't have a great time back in the LEC, but that's an interesting gamble. You were all massive fans of him, surely. They gave you fucking Humanoid himself, where, as we just said, he actually signed him at the perfect time. That looked at the best time to sign Humanoid. And then they also gave you Razork, a player that was like, that's exactly the player that if that had gone to a G2 and become a champion, you'd all go, what an idiot, why didn't you get him from Misfits? They did. They got all these people, then in coaches, they gave you all these big name coaches too. Like, they've actually done a lot of things right in the Fnatic org. It's just crucially, like, the pieces don't hold together. Whatever aspect of the structure, they have the players. Here's the problem. This is awesome GMing 10 years ago. The problem is in the modern day, every other team, isn't that what we're talking about with the other teams, the structure? Like how they have the sports psych and they have the extended coaching staff. And also, you nailed a key detail there that I want to talk about, because I feel like Peter has to have a take on this. He didn't really do it much, but Peter essentially is the one who invented having 3 teams, where you have one team that's your main team, you have one team that's your academy team that you try in the prospect, and then you have the team where you just try crazy pick. You're trying the Cameroonian player that you picked. Maybe he becomes the Prodigies roster. That's where Jojo came from. I always tell people this. People think they were all in the academy. No, it was the third team that helped develop the talents that came into the evil geniuses of the world. So if you look at this, that approach, here's the thing that's criminal, I think, that they don't have, not only like an ERL team, but that they don't do the third team with the young players. Bro, that is where DeadShadow, only them having the name Fnatic would give them the most OP advantage ever. Because let's say, here's the thing, the Academy ERL team, yeah, maybe you still go to like, do I want to win the ERLs? It's a good team. If you were the young 16-year-old getting signed to the Prodigies of Fnatic, bro, you're signing because that's Fnatic. That's how, by the way, European football has worked the whole time. The point is, I might never play you if I'm like Manchester United or something, but if you're a 15-year-old and Manchester United said, do you want to come and join our youth squad? Of course you say yes, because your brain goes, holy shit, that's Manchester United. Like, Fnatic would automatically have crazy name value to get so many of these people. Like, the joke is, in a sane world, they'd have had, like, the Kamiloo guy 3 years ago in their squad, and they'd know if he was a real prospect, and then they'd bring him through now, or the Jackies and all the rest. Vladdy, you wouldn't wait and then let some other squad pick him up out of a fucking ARL or solo queue. You'd have tried these guys 3 years ago, and you would get first dibs. You'd be way ahead of the BDSs of the world, etc. So I'm with you. What's funny is a lot of this flame was about players and Fnatic, coaching. No, I actually do think ultimately, if you look at the project, they've maxed every other aspect out. It has to be something structurally within the org at this point in time. It really is a Fnatic problem more than like a Razork problem, a Humanoid problem. Because at the end of the day, you can say that, but if we replace those players, I could still see a lot of these issues still remaining.
Yeah. No, I agree. For the 3-team thing, I don't want to claim credit for that. I think it's Kelsey Moser. Like, Kelsey Moser was the one who kind of like...
Yeah, I mean, you enabled it though as someone who's willing to bring people up though and promote them.
Like, it would, to be clear, the way that it worked is in NA, Kelsey Moser like really insisted on it, pitched it to 100 Thieves, which was Papa Smith.
It's a brilliant idea. Yeah.
Adopted it, and then EG basically
yes, you're right.
Like, they just copied exactly what 100 Thieves did, but then we had discussions because Kelsey was then on Evil Geniuses, and we had the discussion that we're actually going to hard commit to our third team as well, right? Like, we're going to put LCS resources into the third team, which I think is the innovation. But I'm not going to claim credit for
fair enough.
Because that was really on Kelsey, and to NASA Empire, who was the scout on Evil Geniuses and Andrew Barton. It's just how the third team was used.
Don't you think though, Fnatic could be a perfect team to do something like this though? I mean, by the way, I also agree G2 would be. The joke is they don't need it though. Like, so at the moment, that's like excellent. If you're Fnatic, wouldn't this be like how you get the next player?
I mean, G2's second team is BDS now.
Sure, that's a good joke. Okay,
true. But like Fnatic need to Fnatic don't even have a second team right now. Like, I mean, they don't even have a partnership with a second team. Like, it's crazy because even if all Fnatic have to do, they have to pay like minimal money. Okay, so they have to pay minimal money. Like, it's just have them put your title in there, and then should I tell you what you get access to? Even if your team is shit, you get access to the scrims. And because you're the Fnatic B team, every team, the LFL teams, even if your team like is a shit LFL team or they're a shit LVP team, people want to scrim you because the players know that if you go and scrim Fnatic's B team or G2's B team, who's going to be looking at those scrims in the off season? It's going to be the coaches. And, that's why even when your academy team is not very good, you can still get really, really good scrims if you are the academy team of an LEC team, because people think this is my ticket into the LEC. Like, I'm going to try hard for my life, either against these LEC teams, if you get the LEC script, or against this LEC academy team. And Fnatic don't even have that.
By the way, they could also, as you're saying, it would be so easy to get this partnership, Peter, because one thing that's actually quite strange, actually, about the ERLs is they don't tend to be the other big esports brands that aren't in LEC. A lot of them just stay away. They only come to LEC. It's actually a lot of squads you won't know the names of. If you go and look at some of the LVP and LFL teams, you won't even recognise these teams. So I'm pretty sure they would partner for the money and the brand immediately, Peter.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure you're paying 5 figures. You're not even paying 6 figures. I'm pretty confident in the current economy. Yeah. Like, you're literally paying for all of that scouting data. Like, I don't know if you're going to run AI models, like whatever GX is doing right with theirs, because they do some. They have like some model that they use for scouting. But even just having the raw access to the VODs is like literally like worth a lot of money, right? Like, and then obviously you get to try your own high risks. You get to try your Kamiloo. You get to try your whoever else you want to flip, right? But Fnatic have never needed to do that in the past, right? Because Fnatic could always come. They could come to Caps and say, "We are Fnatic. Sign for us. We are Nemesis." Or no, sorry, they could go to Nemesis. They could go to Selfmade. All of these guys who are like considered really, really high prospects. Fnatic got first choice, so they just.
Oh, mate, that's the other thing that kills me. I didn't extend it further, but if you want to do the whole LEC era. Bro, the GMs are just putting all LEC talent over it. They're just ramming these teams with players. That's why I actually give the Man United example. Man United doesn't have bad players. Those are all good players elsewhere. They just all become bad on Man United somehow. So, like, I actually do think it can't be the players, because they've had every player in the fucking sun at this point. We've even had G2 players. They just don't work on this team.
Yeah, I mean, Fnatic is definitely the Manchester United of, like, the LEC. Like, I mean, Anthony, seeing Anthony go to...
He became amazing on Betis,
Yeah,
like he was like twice as good instantly. Yeah,
he's gone from Manchester United, the toxic environment, to Manchester United within 3 weeks. He's like, scored 4 goals. Yeah, I mean, like that makes me wonder. If Razor goes somewhere else, if Humanoid goes somewhere else, are they gonna be good again? Are they gonna be like top tier? Is it just like Fnatic? And then
the joke is this is where Razor can like next year goes to like BDS and wins the split or something stupid, and they're like, wow, it's the perfect jungle with no issues. Like, brilliant. Cheers.
Who could have that?
I know. And then the joke then is all the same fans will be going, oh, what the hell? You kicked Razor? Like, you were the ones telling me to do it every fucking year. I love it.
I mean, my bet is because I don't think Fnatic fans are flaming Razor. I don't think you should flame players at all, but I think that they're not blaming him enough for like what are the mistakes. Yeah. But I just want to see that with Humanoid or Oscar. Just send them to another team, and like you've been shitting on these guys for like 3 years, 2 years, and see how they do. Of course, it could just be a flop, and then you get to have your victory on Twitter. Good job. But yeah, I mean, at some point it's an org issue, right? Like it's not. But the problem is that because they've taken all of these steps, they have no way out. There is no escape. They just have to keep doing the same thing and just keep.
And also, let's be fair. This is the thing I hate about how people analyse this year's Fnatic compared to last year's. Last year's Fnatic was just straight up getting beaten. Like you watch this one, like I say, they really are like that meme what we referenced last week, that famous Scara thing. They are winning all these games until they lose. Actually, the KC series was the only series I've seen where they got completely clapped. Even the G2 one. The joke is G2 might now win this split, and the team that might have given them one of the best series was fucking Fnatic, believe it or not. Like there was so many moments in that game where you think they're going to win.
Yep, and I mean this is the
and they did absolutely murk the regular split. Like the numbers across the board are incredible. There's a reason why Upset was the MVP.
But I mean, this is the only reason that I ask about the timing, right? Because to me, I don't think you can change. You can afford to put people with Razor's and Humanoid salary on your bench. I think you just can't, right? Especially unless you're ironclad that you have the next caps, which I don't see in the ERLs. Maybe there is, but like I don't see them. But the one position you can maybe change, if let's say you think all sports psychologists are quacks and they don't provide anything to your team, right? Then you can at least change your top laner. Yeah, there's a couple of top laners who are there that you can just flip on, even if it's only for one split, who I'm sure would be really, really happy to go to Fnatic, right? But for me, they need to change something, and it's the support stuff.
Do you want to know some pure copium? Do you want some insane copium, Peter? This is how fucked in the head I am over certain players. Because I'm like you on some level. There's certain players I won't give up on. I just tend to pick the really good ones, not the ones that are fucking mid that you think secretly go. So the joke is, I would really do the movie. I'd get on that phone, call up the log cabin. What's going on? Odo, we need you, bro. One last mission. Mission weak side. Because all he has to do is come in and play that and on. You don't have to do anything. You're never going to be on a carry pick ever in your fucking life, son. All you have to do is just set up set up the structures. Don't in like Oscar and did. Don't do that. And then listen, no one should do this move, but that's what I would do.
I mean,
that's the dream right there.
Yeah, I mean, he's clearly still got it, right? Because he's actually made Bals like legitimately
versus
like playing his play style. So he's clearly done coaching when he was.
And I'll tell you right now, someone like Upset saying yes to that move instantly, bro. What are you talking about? Perma weak sider. Yeah, bring him in. Get him in immediately. Get him in. Get him in the door. Of course. Easiest sell in the world, that one. Easiest sell. Right, okay then, Peter, speaking of interesting org decisions, what's your ugly point?
Okay, so my ugly point this week is the whole Vitality saga. Like, okay, so let's summarize the Vitality situation. So, Hylissang, let's be clear, right? Like, he was running it down in winter. Like, he had a pretty bad summer. Like, ironically, he had a mixed summer. Then Pad gave the interview where
it's gotten so bad with Hylissang that people didn't even used to say, but what about the really good games? They'd go, some games he wasn't shit. That's what people used to say in fucking this team. That's how bad it got.
But then this is this is the real defense against the dark arts slot, right? Because they had Sten. They let Sten go to Heretics because they're building around Hylissang. Hylissang then goes and like, maybe it's not his fault, but Bwipo goes and kind of throws him under the bus by like
love that one too. I know.
In a private conversation.
Hey, secret like hits all his teammates. I know it's brilliant. What a mental thing. Cheers, mate. Thanks.
Cheers, mate. Like
so mad, isn't
it? So and then his performance drops, right? So the out of game leadership obviously is compromised because you don't even like give a public statement, saying, "Oh, it was just out of context. It was just," you literally say nothing and hope that it will blow over, which compromises your leadership, right, outside of the game, because I guarantee his teammates saw that.
Oh, of course.
Second thing, your performance then drops. So they decide they have to make a change after backing this guy to like the end of the world, right? Which, as a coach, to be fair, I would back Hillerstein
Yeah, of course.
in that situation. But at the point where he like throws his teammates under the bus, that is where maybe I would draw the line. But at some point, so they back him. Then they're in the situation where it's the end of winter. He's kind of like betrayed their trust in game and out of game. There's their academy support, because they don't think they're going to need to make a support. It's Fleshy, who is Turkish. Turkish visas are the worst.
Right.
They are like,
Right.
they are horrifically difficult to get. So they don't really have time between the splits to get a Turkish visa. So they're like, okay, what do we have? We have this semi-promise, like tier A minus B plus. Let's call him an A minus B plus. Let's be kind. Okay, a prospect in academy. We want to develop this guy, so we don't want to bring in another rookie over him. So we need to find veteran support. Oh, we don't really have a very good option. But Nisqy has all the qualities. Let's go inside Nisqy. Okay, with the idea that we are going to put Nisqy for the next 2 splits, and Fleshy continues to develop, and maybe he comes into the roster next year. We'll see how it goes. Okay. So I don't know exactly what happened behind the scenes, but I just want to read the Nisqy interview. Okay, so there was a summary. So Nisqy did like an exit stream when he left Vitality.
Oh,
okay?
right, okay.
And in his exit stream, which is translated on Reddit, he thanks all of his teammates. He says that Knack is going to be like an insane. He's going to be one of the best players in the league one day. He says Linkas has like huge potential, and he says Kazi like did everything for him. Right? Then he doesn't mention the coaching staff at all. Then his chat brings up the coaching staff, and then he gives like some nothing answer. But there's one thing that he doesn't mention. There's one player that he didn't mention, right? Which is Sayak. He didn't mention Sayak at all, right? And this is in an interview where he is saying that basically he's done playing support and he wants to go and play this, right? Now.
Ooh, okay.
I'm not saying that he tried to become mid on Vitality, right? Like I think it would be absolutely crazy to like, do something like that. That's not something that I can see Nisqy doing. I mean, but it's clearly there were frustrations. Maybe he would have been happy to play support for, VTO or Perks or something like this, but not happy to play for Sayak, because obviously Sayak will be making mistakes as a rookie that he sees and will probably frustrate him, right?
And he's thinking, I could do that better.
Yeah, probably, right?
Like, so it's totally human. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and I don't know, and again, I don't know exactly what's happening in Vitality, but it's clear that there was some of the reason why he's triggered with the Vitality project is that it's about the performance of the mid lane, right?
Right.
Now, I didn't think Sayak was that bad, right? For a rookie,
Right,
I thought, I thought he was better than Lot, probably better than Lot for this split, but below Knack, below Sten, below Caliste, obviously, right? Below Skimon, but like decent. Like I thought he was pretty good this split, right? So for me, it's a case of something happened there that really triggered Nisqy to the point where he like doesn't want to play anymore for after one split, and maybe he could have developed into a good support, but definitely he wasn't a good support in spring, right? Like, let's be clear. But there was no expectation that he was going to be a good support.
One
right?
split surely wasn't the plan, exactly. You can't bail after one split. That sounds like the bigger issues than just support. Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But now you're in a situation where he gives that exit interview, which is like we read between the lines. Always, like people will say, "Oh, he never said that." If you want to like study esports, go like people. What they don't say is almost as important as what they say in the interview, right?
Yes.
And the fact that he doesn't mention Sayak is maybe it's a translation issue.
And Nisqy's such a chill guy. If he wanted to, he could also just fake it and be like, "Oh, they're all fine. It's no." So the fact that it's actually quite telling when essentially he would never flame them, Peter, but the fact he almost does by not mentioning is quite conspicuous. I agree.
Yeah. And I mean, Nisqy's too good a guy to like throw somebody under the bus, right? So that I'm inventing drama,
Sure.
But no, okay. But I'm not saying that So I'm not saying he wanted to be mid laner, but what I'm saying is he was on Vitality for one split, willing to play support, and then over the course of one split decided that he never wants to play support again, right? And he's going back to mid lane, and it's clearly something that doesn't happen unless the mid laner you're playing support for is doing something that's triggering you. I don't know whether it's inside the game, outside the game, or basically he thought that he could have done better or contributed in a different way, right? So that's clearly got something to do with it, and it's a mutual termination. It's not like one side terminated. It's just like they decided, Nisqy decided he didn't want to play support anymore, and then the org were like, okay, fine, well, let's draw a line under this. And I think it's been announced that they're promoting Fleshy, who, yeah, but this whole thing is such a tragedy because like I think Vitality really like imagine a world where they promoted Sten plays like he's playing like now. We're not having this discussion about being a top 4 in the league because Vitality are right up there, like they're playing really, really fucking well. And now like I mean, they've got to do something in summer, right? Like at the point where your owner is giving an interview where he's saying, like, you know, this is like.
I've never seen any big owner ever basically almost say, like, you're fired if you don't do a good job, coaches. That's basically like what the gist of his message was. But it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, which to me is rough because you know, look at how much Sayak and Nak have developed, right? And Linkers have developed a bit. He didn't develop as much. I thought Linkers had a bit more. Was going to be better than this, but like Sayak and Nak have like developed a ridiculously high amount, right? So it's not like Vitality are just like trolling and like everything is going to shit. It's just that this support thing, they have to fill the defense against the Dark Arts spot, and who's next on the line is Fleshy, and you know, Fleshy has good hands, but is has a bit of the 1-1-3 around him. That's what I will say. So like let's see how it goes. It would make me very, very sad if Vitality didn't find an answer to this because obviously I'm biased towards Mac, but like I think I see clear signs, like it's really, really obvious that their rookies improved a lot. But the whole thing, nobody comes out of this like looking good. No, nobody comes out of this. Like even Mac and Pad, like this is rough on them. It's rough on Hilly. It's rough on Nisqy. It's rough on everything, right? So hopefully we'll see some kind of conclusion.
Okay, fair enough. I like the angle because obviously everyone would say just promote from the RL or whatever, but it is true. Like in this particular case, the Fleshy guy maybe isn't the light at the end of the tunnel. In this scenario, maybe that's what you're worried about, Peter. You don't want him to turn out to be a Flesh light and just get fucked on his own. Whatever. It's a freebie for you there. Right, anyway, let's go to the last point of the show. So the last point of the show is going to be... Oh, no, wait, sorry, we didn't do our responses. Fucking talk for so long. Yeah, DeadShadow, what do you think about the Nisqy support? We got lost in the sauce there. It was actually about the Nisqy support experiment. What do you think?
Yeah.
I mean, I think Nisqy lived up to what everyone expected, right? I don't think anyone expected much from him. I think so a lot of people that, he was a kind of like supportive mid laner. He has lots of knowledge. He's a big caller, so he's going to fit the role well. I mean, he can, but he's never going to be like instantly like super god tier, right? And that team needs more. I agree fully with Peter. I got very confused at the time at the end of 2024 of why did he not promote Stunt. I think they did a fairly good job with Naku, and Yike. To be fair with Yike, I got really surprised positively. I actually thought that maybe, okay, he's coming back. Last time we saw him, he was not really like that good. Is it like just another Seiken, like someone that's coming back and
yes,
he's going to promote him just for the sake of promoting, or maybe they're going a bit more budget on the role. But to be fair, no, I agree. I think Yike actually probably surprised everyone positively. And to be fair, I thought that maybe the roster with Ilisang, with double kind of rookie-ish solo laners, I thought maybe it will be a big shot, that could maybe go wrong or really, really wrong. But to be fair, no, I think Nak was a really big surprise for everyone. I think I fully agree with what Nisqy said about him. I think Nak can be a huge prospect. With Ilisang at the time, I didn't like it. I'm going to be honest. I much respect for Really. I think he's a great player, but I really think that this team needed someone more stable. Like if you're getting someone with Naku, you get Linces. Even Karzi to some extent is a bit crazy on his own, right? So I think this team had too much firepower to some extent, and not controlled one. So I really think that maybe if they brought up Stance initially, I think this team maybe could be a contender for the top 4, maybe not as clear, but they could be fighting for it at least. So yeah, now it's very sad to see because it looks like Mac and Pads do phenomenal work year after year. They seem like great coaches from the outside. So I'm really sad that they're under this position where they have like a less chance. doesn't fit with the performance and the roster that they assembled to my perspective, because I actually think that what they brought up to the table was good. I think them having a find on Nako, I think Lisa's is improving after improving. I think Shaq was a surprise for everyone. So I don't think the project was not well built. It's just like Peter said, this support role has to be filled in. I think clearly with Nisqy, it will never work phenomenally. Maybe it could be like a bandage for spring until they find someone for summer. I guess they're going to promote Flashy. Personally, from what I saw from Flashy, I saw a lot. I think Flashy, even when he was in NA, right, I think he's good. But for me, it's kind of like Peter said, he's like a junior Illy, kind of, or a 1-1-3. So I don't think he's going to bring the stability that this team needs, my perspective. So I don't think Vitality will have a good time on summer. I really hope I'm wrong. I really hope that this make it to top 6 and maybe they can dispute themselves top 4 or something more. But I think if they fall out of top 6 on summer, it's a very big dark eye for the org. I think it's a very big disappointment. And maybe it's the end of Mac and this roster, right? So it's very sad for Nako and Chaik to perform like this and have this type of debut when everything around them feels like it's crumbling, like it feels like they're doing their part, but the structure around them is just falling to pieces. And it's sad to see because they sometimes can kind of put the rookies to a bad image. And I really hope it does not reach that point. I really hope they find their fixes on summer and things can go well.
Here's why, even though, are you ready, Peter? Watch how I do this. I can simultaneously like Mark and Pad and even think they're good at coaching, but I don't have that much sympathy. Here's why. Because it's actually poetic how this year went if this ends up being your last year in a top team. Because how did it fail? You over-gambled and doubled down for the millionth time on which 2 players? Hylissang and Nisqy. That's your whole careers right there. That's what you've done the whole time, Mac. You have literally taken these guys when everyone said they're washed, and you disagreed and said no, they can still be. And it didn't work out. Like, listen, that used to happen at the top level. You used to actually be a top team and then fail at Worlds or fail in the playoffs, etc. Now it's happening at the mid level. That's what happens. Listen, those are 2 players where they have that classic cliche: you live by them and you die by them. And in this case, you're going to die by them. So I would have more sympathy, Peter, if they'd tried way more experiments, if they'd have taken these guys out. But because they always went to bat for those players, I mean, in the case of Nisqy, they were even willing to let him role swap. Then unfortunately, at the end, like, that goes on you. The gamble, by the way, here's the reason why the gamble has to go on you. Because if it had worked out, you'd get the credit. We'd all go, wow, what a genius, you didn't sell Hylissang. Wow, you made Nisqy like actually a shot caller who could come from support and add everything we wanted for the jungler and bring Lynch out. We would give you all that praise. So unfortunately, that means when it goes the other direction, and you could have just done what all these other squads are supposed to do, get an ERL player, get an up-and-coming player, when you didn't do that. So unfortunately, a lot of it will fall on your shoulders. That's the nature of the gig. It is a performance industry. It doesn't matter how great you are, nice guy, awesome fucking notes on the board. At the end of the day, and by the way, especially in Vitality, here's another thing. You aren't in fucking Heretics, mate. You aren't in SK. You can't just be like, yeah, not bad. You're in a team where the reason why I get why that fucking owner has made that comment is because, think about this. His CS team has won 30 matches in a row and 6 lands in a row. Those fans, I mentioned just on the past one, I can tell you from Counter-Strike, which is not even that big a game to have ultras in, their fan base is one of the best, mate. They want to have fucking crazy ultras and fans and drums, and that Golden Hornets go crazy in CS, mate. They don't even get a chance to do anything in fucking League because they've never even had the moment to believe it was worth investing and getting into the org. So unfortunately, I can see why the pressure from the org, and it's another org, a la Fnatic in the LEC era, that spent a lot of fucking money and had a lot of all LEC talents. And there's a concept I always bring up in other games, which is you get something called fan fatigue, which is when it's been too many years, you could have said this about Arsenal, Spurs fans, when it's been too many years without winning, it doesn't matter that you just joined now, they're still feeling that exact same momentum of all the past years, and so they demand you win now. They demand, put it this way, in this particular case, the real problem this split is you didn't even reach the minimum. The minimum was to be, like we're saying, that 5th or 6th team that took like a game and a half off KC, and you were like, oh, this you didn't even get to that point. You failed that one. Like, unfortunately, that decided against Heretics. That's what you have to think about. That game against Rook, that's what you have to think about. It's not the other things. You had the upside. So unfortunately, I do think that is bad. And then if I go and look at these players, here's why this project didn't work, unfortunately. I actually think if you want to go another narrative, go back in in time 10 years, the player who ruined role swaps forever was High from Cloud9. Because remember, he role swapped to jungle and got him to Worlds. Then he role swapped to support and there was still like a playoff team. That made people think you can just role swap. It's like, no, the joke there was, if you ever watch the games, he wasn't even good at those roles. Like, the joke was he couldn't even jungle, mate. He really was just only shot calling. And at the time, he was so much better at shot calling. Like, it was worth just having him on the comms. Just giving him a mic in any context was worth it. The problem is that isn't League of Legends nowadays, mate. There's no fucking jungle support that are like that can just only be a microphone. Like, and also, I'll just add this in. I can't speak to this, Peter. You've been in his teams, but I always got the feeling people took the concept that Nisqy's really good at working with the jungler and took that as like he's the best shot caller. Like, I don't know about that. I haven't ever seen anyone tell me Nisqy's some like, amazing shot. And people will say, like, he's vocal in comms, he's a good teammate and stuff. I never saw him as this guy who's like, you know, the fucking chess master moving the pieces. I don't know where this narrative's come from, because I think people did expect that. I think when he joined this team, people thought the following. One, he'll be the captain. He's got a great attitude. He'll bring people up. Two, all your problems with lane chats are solved. You're going to have the guy who's going to come in. Now, he always works with the junglers and he's the support. Brilliant combo. We need the jungle support combo. By the way, he's been in Kazi teams before. Loves Kazi, great play with him, etc., etc. And this is why actually that interview is very telling. He's supposed to have an all-Elise attitude. He's supposed to be the ultimate fucking cool vibes guy. He's not supposed to be the guy going like, a little bit bitchy, not making a comment about this guy. That's not fucking Nisqy. That alone tells me that. That's a big fucking ringing bell, like warning, Danger Will Robinson. This fucking Vitality project is toast. It's over. So I'm quite worried. I have to say I'm quite worried for this. And also, I'll just throw this out there. It's another problem if you're Mac as well, in my opinion. Kazi has been beyond fucking accommodating as a star player of your team. I think he has been all LEC quality every one of the years he's played in your teams. And I think some of these last years, pretty swear, mate, I know all the big ego ADCs. They'd have told you to get Hillsang the fuck out the door years ago, mate. Even if they were friends with him, they'd have come and had that private one-on-one. Look, coach, I think we should maybe bring up the support. Maybe we should try him in the RLs and see. You know, they'd have done that. They'd have found a way to get him out the door, I'm telling you. So I think Kazi's been beyond accommodating. He even to this day, by the way, never complains. I've never seen him publicly ever complain about the support or imply like, where's Martin? He's never done the sort of shit my mates would do. They'd just fucking tweet like, what can you do 1v9 or something? He'll never do that, even if it's true. So I do think, unfortunately, this is one of those ones where it doesn't matter how much you like them. The circumstances in this particular gamble, it was a gamble after a whole bunch of other gambles, and unfortunately this one hasn't worked. It's not like it failed as hard as some of the Hillsang splits, but it didn't bring what it was supposed to bring is the problem. Because it was supposed to, again, it was the idea was, I agree with you, Peter, it wasn't that anyone was saying Nisqy will be a top support player. It was the idea that he would bring so much, even if he wasn't very good at support, to the others, that would elevate the team, you know. And I'm with you. Sadly, the ultimate hindsight move is, if you go back in a time machine, at the beginning of the year, you just put Stend in this spot, and we'd actually be having a completely different conversation. This would be like a really interesting squad.
Yeah, I mean, for the role swap thing, I think like basically you have to be a future Hall of Famer to be able to role swap. Like, I mean, it's like literally, who is it? Like Ambition, Stend, Ambition, Yahoo, Perks, right? Yeah. That's it. Like, I can't think of it. Maybe Bwipo, if you count that like one split, but like I
especially because notice in this analogy, we're doing it where we're letting you roll swap before we even know how you're going to play. It's fine if you go away and roll swap and you go, you know, and you just come back later as like that new player and you earned your spot back. We're just gambling with these guys that they can just do it but from a different role.
Yep. I mean, like for me, the Nisqy thing, you know, I could see he always made his junglers play better. Maybe
that's true.
Mid lane. You know, maybe he can just do it for mid lane better because he's like coordinating mid jungle roams, whereas support, normally you're roaming for the jungler, whereas like you can make the jungler play for you. It's more easier to make the jungler play for you as a mid laner. So like you're basically calling resources to your lane and then transferring pressure. Whereas with support, what you're doing is like going to another lane or going to your jungler, following your jungler's call. And then it's like an additional step. So it's on that. Like, also, it's worth saying that I'm only going on the interview translation for Reddit.
Yeah,
you know, maybe he was like really, really amazing about Zayek, you know? Yeah. It's just I was reading this and I was like, like there's one guy you're missing here, you know, like when you're praising all of these other guys. But so please correct if wrong. But I just go from the from the source I have. I think that it's the way that the thing isn't that it failed, right? The thing is the way that it ends, right? And the way that it ends is very clearly with like a guy who was very optimistic to join your org and is now said he's
Black
throwing you
belt.
under the bus.
Yeah, it's
right?
pretty dark.
Like on his way out, right? Like he's not really. It's Nisqy. Nisqy's never going to throw you under the bus, right?
Sure.
But it's like he's Nisqy. This is the worst that Nisqy will ever criticize you, right? Like he's never going to be worse than this, you know. Like so like this is like a little bit, you know, on that. And I think it's also, I mean, it's not like Fleshy has nothing, right? Like it's not like Fleshy is guaranteed. Like if you ask me, Fleshy or Kamiloo, I would say Kamiloo is a larger risk than Fleshy, right? Like I think Fleshy is a massive risk, but I don't think he's like that absurd. So maybe things will be fine in the summer. But yeah, like it's you could tell that the fans are frustrated, and I think they would be much less frustrated if they didn't fucking lose to Sten. Like because they love Sten on Vitality. They don't really like Syke that much because Syke wasn't that good, right? Like people think Syke. You talk to Vitality fans, they're like, oh, he's a choker. You know, maybe some of them like his personality, but like they don't trust him to perform in big games, right?
Sure.
So I think even Vitality fans were surprised that he got promoted, but they love Knack and they love Sten. So like so that's even worse, right? So yeah. So let's see. You know, let's see how it goes. But this is the big, like, coming into summer. Obviously, I'm going to be excited for how our teams recover after their international events. Sorry, how they recover from winning so hard at our international events that they've been celebrating too much and not screaming enough. But that will be my number one thing. But my number two storyline will be to see how Vitality function, because you know, I have the feeling that these guys in BDS should be the two bridging the gap. Yeah, so.
The fact that even Peter Dun's Scorpion was maybe things could be better in some. That was all he gave us. Fucking hell. So enough said. That again, that's the Nisqy review of the team on the way out. Fucking hell, if that's where we're at, maybe. Okay, fuck. Anyway, the last point of the show, it doesn't have to be a crazy one. It's only analysis of one player. But I have to say, this is the player I want you both to analyse for me, because it's actually the player that is invisible. He is never spoken about. And he was technically voted onto the third team. But that in itself tells you everything. It's Targamas from Karmine Corp. Right, bearing in mind Karmine Corp finished first in the split. They lost one series, which was a close one to Fnatic. And even though he was given all-pro third team, when you're on a team that wins all the games, that's basically like, we do think you're the worst player on the team. I think you've even only got the third one there, because since you win the game, in people's brains, it always makes you feel like you must be doing so. I want to know how you evaluate this player, because to me, if this was the real narrative switch from past years, he should be like the all-first team. He's got the best teammates, he's got the best ADC, he's got all these amazing things. So I want to know, I find it hard to evaluate a player like this when you're on a team that might even win the league. Does he have deficiencies? Do they cover them? Where are you at on this player, DeadShadow? I'd like to see how people evaluate him.
Personally, for me, the biggest difference I see from Targamas to players compared to Miki, and even like Asian supports, right? Kyle on Missing. I think it's like Targamas always was known for his enchanters, right? That's the first thing. Like, he was always known that, okay, his engagers are not as good. He's a bit more quiet player. But I think currently he's actually way more proficient on engagements. But I think where he still is a bit different compared to players like Miki is that I think Miki somewhat as the X factor, you know, like the fact that you can see a play from maybe like 20 seconds ago and he can get in position for a big flank. For example, talking about the Fnatic AC series, I even remember on game 2, Miki was playing Rakan. I remember he got like a 3-man Rakan ultimate, you know, into a 3-man Rumble equalizer. Then he also got a really big flank around the Nash when the game was already kind of lost. But he has this X factor, you know, he looks for this place. And he reminds me a lot of Delight compared to Agent, right? Whereas Targamas, I think Targamas is different, you know. I think Targamas kind of like, it will not grab the game by his end, but it will help you a lot grabbing it, you know, like it will help you a lot. Yike going for an evade, it will help a lot just fogging between the lanes. It will over the lane that has to grab the next wave. And I think especially the biggest thing about him is that this guy has a huge like syncing with Caliste, right? Like, these guys have been playing for ages now. So these guys together, I think they're prime reckless Illisank to some extent, you know. Like, these guys are really good together. I think they have a huge creativity. I think they have a huge pool. I mean, even from Kaliste's side, right? We know that he can play the Gnarly, he can play the Yasuo, Targamas can play the Senna, he can play Enchanters, he can play Engagers. So I think Targamas, like, I would split him differently compared to Mickey. I think there are two type of supports. I think Mickey is a support that maybe is going to be a bit more flashy. I think maybe can win you the game, but he can also lose you the game, right? I think, for example, in World 2023, 2024, many people were criticizing Mickey, right? Because he looked like he was just wandering around the map, getting picked off, maybe looking a bit too deep. And Targamas is never a player that he would kind of do that, right? He's not going to probably lose you the game. But that's the thing. It's not going to grab you the flashy engage, or it's going to make you like the crazy 2v2, 3v3. But that's the thing. I don't feel like KC as a whole needs someone like that. I think KC has a huge individual skill. They have these rookies that they just need support. They just need the guidance. They just need someone by their side. They just need to be information. And then on team fights, I think that's where they shine the most, and that's what I think. Targamas is actually pretty good. I think has a very good team fighting. I think his vision control is decently good. I actually think Mickey, for example, is better, and he's probably like worse compared to Asian supports. But yeah, like for me, I would never say that one is clearly better than the other. I would rate them differently, and I would always go for one or the other depending on what I feel my team will require.
I think that's fair. I will go with the interview thing and read what is being said. Okay, so I'm going to go with Rehal's own words, right? Which is that Rehal says, who's like the biggest Targamas defender, like behind the scenes.
Right, okay.
I don't know how much he says it because a lot of his interviews are in French, but like behind the scenes, there is nobody who this guy champions Targamas more than I champion Evi, right? Like to give you an idea of like the level that he does. The thing that he says is Targamas is a player that really, really needs to feel comfortable, both in his team and in his bot lane, right? And if you ask me, what is the strength that Mickey has? I think Mickey is a lot more plug and play. I think you know exactly what Mickey's going to give you. He's going to give you a really, really high level of support. Like I've talked about this before, where I say when I talk to Asian coaches, they tell me that they look at two players in the LEC, which are Caps and Mickey, because they think that Mickey, the way that his warding, like it's too much to get into here, but like he's really smart on his ward timers, he's really smart on his ward placements. Like he does a lot of really creative things in the river. And like they actually study him as an LEC player, which is weird for Asian coaches to admit to. But this is what you get from Mickey, and he will consistently provide that to you no matter what team you're on. He will sometimes push his limits. That can be a benefit as well as a detriment. But you're always getting strength. It doesn't really matter the team environment. He's just providing you with that, right? If you talk about Targamas, if you look at the AD carries that he has thrived with, he has thrived with 3 AD carries over his decade-long career. He's been playing for a very, very long time, right? Maybe like 8 or 9 years, right? The 3 AD carries he's done best with are Flackett, who I can vouch for 100%, is like the most nurturing. Like you want Flackett to go and play Karma for you, so you can go play your weird Pike, or you want to go and play like you want to be the carry. Flackett is like, yeah, let me play Cassante. Kaiser, you want to go play center? Yeah, I'm gonna play Cassante all week. I'm gonna play Cho'Gath in solo queue. Just you wait. I'm so excited to do it for you, right? Like this is the first person he did well with. The second person he did well with is Caliste, and like I don't know enough about Caliste, but he seems like a good guy, and for sure the two of them are more than willing to play the creative stuff. Sometimes when they shouldn't be playing the creative stuff, but they're willing to experiment, and you can see that that's clearly a positive, nurturing relationship where they're like, you want to go and play Neela? Yeah, okay, I'm up for it. You want to play Taric? Sure, I'm going to play Calista for you. I'm going to play Ezreal Taric if that's what you really, really want. Yeah, I'm all up for it. Let's go. And then the third one he played with is Xmati, who, for people that don't know on this show, is literally like the perfect teammate, right? Like he will literally. I mean, wasn't he the guy on that they didn't promote Crowny on BDS? Like Grabs didn't promote,
yes,
because he was like such a good teammate that it didn't even matter that Crowny was like murdering him in late,
yes.
like because he was literally like the god teammate, right? And those are the 3 AD carries that Targamas has succeeded with. You look at the AD carries that he hasn't succeeded with. Upset. I'm just looking down
Patrick.
the list. Jezu.
Patrick.
Yeah, and then going down some lists. These are guys who have very, very high individual expectations from what they want from their support.
Right.
Like they it's not like they're gonna flame you, right? But it's like you make a mistake, they're like, or it's like maybe you want to innovate, but they'll be like, okay, justify why we should spend time playing, Tarek, right? Whereas I get the feeling that with Caliste, it's like, I want to play Tarek. Oh, you want to play Tarek? Great, yeah, let's go play Tarek, right? Whereas maybe if you're talking to an Upset or you're talking to a Jezu, it's more like, oh, they're not really playing it in Korea. Are you sure that's something you want to do? It's not like they're saying no. It's like there's more resistance, and I think this to me is the key with Targamas, right? Like I don't think Targamas is going to like be Mickey level of international respect, right? Like he's just not good. Like you can't. Mickey is like a top 10 support of all time, maybe even a top 5 support of all time. Obviously, he's going to have the international respect. I don't think Targamas will get there unless KC like win like everything for the next 3 years. But what he will give you is he'll give you creativity, he'll give you stability, and like he will give you, he will encourage. Him being in the team gives other people space to play the game as they like it, right? So maybe if you have like a really vocal support that needs to dominate comms and have the game played his style. Let me think of an example, like maybe a Trimby, right? Who is like really, he likes the game played like he likes the game played. Maybe there's no space for other people to have the game played as they want it. And this is it's very clear that on KC, the reason KC is so successful is because Vladdy stepped into the gap that maybe a more vocal support than Targamas would provide. So I think he's a good fit for KC. But he's a good fit for KC because he literally has his number one champion as the coach, like the guy who like blazes him more than anyone else. He has a support that will allow him to be creative without holding it against him, and he is he has rookies that have been allowed to take up more space in the comms. So the fact he's not the primary shot caller or he's not the leader in how the game is played in the mid game doesn't matter. But I mean, if you put Targamas on Koi, on Fnatic, I think he would be a worse player, but he has the ideal situation for him on KC. And as long as Reha is there, he will be there, right? And as long as Caliste and Reha is there, he'll be there for the time being, right? As long as he continues to have motivation to play the game. So I think that's what he provides. But I personally think Mickey's better.
Not really the hottest take at the end there, but all good.